Hey guys, Pat here. Welcome to Box Office Addict, my weekly live stream where we look at the weekend numbers and talk about our opinions on it and how well the film did compared to expectations and how much money the studio's going to make, which is what we all care about because obviously we all get a cut of that money. I've been paid by Disney now. I finally got my check this week, so I've now changed my opinion on The Last Jedi. Not only do I think it's the best Star Wars movie ever, I think it's the best film of the last 10 years. And it's not because I got that paycheck from Disney. It's actually because I think it's the best movie of the last 10 years. Happy New Year from Australia! Happy New Year to you, too. That's the thing, everyone. New Year's Eve. What the hell is with this? Last Sunday, it was Christmas Eve, and I had to do a show. And then tonight, it's New Year's Eve, and I have to do a show. It's like, come on, man. I'm not going to get a break here. I didn't get to do a Halloween show. Why do I get to do a New Year's show? I'm not even getting to have New Year's Day dinner today this year. It didn't work out. My family just had too much drama, and everyone was working and all that, so we weren't able to get together for it, which sucks because I like my pork and sauerkraut. Unfortunately, not getting that. But this is a big moment. This is the 24th episode of Box Office Addict, so that means we've been doing this for quite a few months now. It's the best since Empire. It's better than Empire. Why even say that? It's like Empire. Rian Johnson watched it and said, I can make a better version of this, and then he did. It's that good. 24 weeks, though, man, and we haven't missed one. I don't think we've missed one Sunday in 24 weeks, so that's pretty crazy. So we're at the end of the year. This is the last Please Rewind video of 2017, I guess, officially. So what do we have to look at the end of the year? Well, that Rose video I made, I'm overwhelmed by the reception to that video. That was very much just a lazy rant video where I just hit record and just go off the top of my head and upload it and hope it does well. YouTube's a weird place, man. You make a video that you work really hard on, and you spend like, I don't know, a week or so writing it, and you spend time thinking about it and working on them, and those videos never get hits. You know, some of the videos on my channel, like underrated classics and stuff like that, I put a lot of time into making it a really good polished video. And, you know, it gets a few hundred hits, but nothing great. Then you just rant for 20, 30 minutes and upload a video, and in a week it has 40,000 hits. You know, it's a weird place. People never click on the stuff you want them to click on. And that's an interesting point I wanted to discuss about YouTube in particular, because you know, I've had a few videos do well. It happens not too often, but every few months. I had last year at this time, just to give you some context of what my channel's been going through the last year. Last year, I had 2 videos within a couple days get 100,000 hits. I uploaded my Smugly Puff video, and that got 100,000 hits in a week. And then I uploaded a Seth Rogen, Amy Schumer video like 4 days later, and it got 100,000 hits. So at the time, I thought, man, my YouTube channel's about to blow up. 2 videos in a row, because the hardest part about having a video that does well is having a follow-up. And then my follow-up video did just as well. Then my next video got 15,000 hits, and then I thought, okay, and I added 2,000 subscribers in like a day, and I thought, man, my channel's gonna blow up. And then that was right when the adpocalypse was hitting, and the algorithm change and where things were going. I won't lie, I made quite a bit of money last year at this time of the year. I won't share what I exactly made, but way more than I deserve to make off YouTube videos. It was pretty crazy, and it also shows that it's random. I know a lot of people think there is a skill to it, and there is in the sense of getting people to click on your stuff is a skill, and thumbnails and titling your video and adjusting to the changes of the algorithm. But a lot of it is just dumb luck. You know, you go in hoping a video is going to get hits, and you never know what one's going to be the one that people start. You never know the momentum of it either. You know, I remember I uploaded an alien video a long time ago about aliens, and when I first uploaded it, it only got like 500 hits, and then one day I started getting all these notifications for comments, and then it got like 12,000 hits in 1 week, and that was months after I made the video. So you should never really give up. You never know what people are going to find. It just changes from month to month, you know. But I just record this rant, and I upload it, and then the next thing you know, it's got 41,000 hits. So we have a lot of new subscribers with us. You know, for something that was meant to be serious, the Adpocalypse is a really silly name. I agree. I never really like the titles that YouTubers give things. I think we actually discredit ourselves on this platform because we think everyone speaks in meme speak, and we think that we have to only speak to 14 to 18-year-olds or something like that. It's like we don't... I mean, I'm not saying all YouTubers, obviously, but yeah, a lot of the names for when something happens are very silly. But that's probably just so they'll catch on, so people become more aware of them. I love that Rogan Schumer video. Hey, thanks, man. A lot of people subbed when I made that video. That was a big video for me. That was probably my most popular video still to this day. I think it has 130,000 hits, but that was the early days when I was just... I didn't even have a microphone then. I just had my computer microphone or a headset, and I would just upload rants of stuff that ticked me off. And I remember that those Bud Light commercials drove me crazy. And I just ranted into a headset. And then you upload and it gets 100,000 hits. And you're like, dude, what? And here's what I'm trying to get at with this. Whenever you get a video that gets a lot of hits, like my Dark Tower video, that has 45,000 hits. Or my Alien franchise video has 60,000 hits. My Ghostbusters video, 20,000 hits. My Marvel Comics video, 20-something thousand hits. Like, going back and listening to your old videos, getting your opinion on political stuff. Yeah, I might get back into politics a little bit in 2018. I'll tell you right now, I do not want to have any relationship at all with anyone in the skeptic community. If there is something I'm glad that I got out of just the last few months, is getting out of that whole scene and all the drama that's... Especially the Kraut situation and what Worski's been doing on his live stream. Not attacking Worski, just the stuff that's been going on in those live streams. It's so high school, and it's like that whole community's just blowing up, and they're gonna destroy themselves with just petty drama. And I'm so glad I got out of that, all the doxing and all that. It's so much self-congratulating each other and all that stuff. I mean, it's not like I was ever part of it, but I did have some traction. I did talk to some of those people, and yeah, outside of like Naked Ape and a couple other people, I don't like anyone in that community. So if I ever do politics again, I have no interest in talking about any of those people either. I'm just going to avoid the YouTube side of it. I'm so sick of YouTube e-celeb stuff. It drives me crazy. I think it results in ego, and you getting a little bit too, up your own butt, because you start to think that everyone... that you're really talented or you're a genius because you've kind of built this community and you have your fans and your friends and you're all reinforcing each other and all that stuff. But I don't like that. I'm a little bit too individualistic for that kind of stuff. I can't... I'm hoping to work with some other movie channels. That would be nice. But most of those I like. I much prefer the movie. There's a lot less drama. I do plan on doing some collaborations this coming year. I have at least 5 channels that would like to do... I'm thinking about on Sundays bringing in like a co-host on Box Office Addict. And I'm also thinking about bringing in people for random interviews and stuff like that. There's a couple channels I'm a really big fan of that I would really like to talk to the people who run the... And they're smaller channels. They have a few thousand subscribers like me, but... I still like their content. As much as I am a YouTuber, I still watch YouTube videos. I'm subscribed to all sorts of channels. Worski's pretty dumb, yet he is It's really my issue. He's very dumb. He has the... I mean, I doubt he has an IQ above 95, and it bothers me that he's becoming like the Howard Stern of that community. YouTube e-celebs are pretty terrible. Nothing tops Vine e-celebs. Yeah, but at least the Vine e-celebs can be really good looking. I see you like Aiden Paladin. She's pretty cool. I think I'm... I don't want to go down that rabbit hole too much, but I am really turning on Aiden Paladin. Quite a bit, actually. So I might take her off that recommended thing. I was a fan of her, but the more I dig deep into finding out about her and listening to more stuff she's done, and I didn't know she was autistic, which that actually shocks me, because autism's such a joke now to find out she actually was, and I think bipolar. So she's had issues, but I think she's actually kind of disingenuous and is lying about almost half the stuff she claims to be an expert in. And I'm really getting sick of her saying she's a scientist in like every field she pretends to be because she has a PhD in media psychology. And we'll go back and let me tell you guys this. This is something about Aiden Paladin, right? Back in the day, she first kind of got notoriety being on a poll thread and getting to debate Destiny, the great Destiny. So she goes to debate Destiny where she got drunk for 2 hours before they actually talked. Or so she says that's what happened, which I believe her because she's always drinking, but that's fine. Well, go back and listen to that debate with Destiny, and it's terrible. I mean, it's so cringe. And if you can't debate Destiny, you don't have your priorities straight. I mean, all she talked about was Trump being a meme king. She keeps throwing in his face how she's a scientist. She's a scientist. She's talking about climate change because she has a PhD in media psychology. And that was very telling. And in almost every video she's ever made, she keeps reiterating this fact that she's a scientist and that she has a PhD. And then in that recent stream with Kraut and Andy and all them, where she starts crying for like 25 minutes, she just keeps... She's like just upset that people don't... And I get what was going on, that she got doxxed and there was photos getting leaked all over that Discord thread and 4chan. You know, her photos got out. People found out who she was. And that sucks. And I have sympathy for her because I didn't know she had like actual autism. But just my thing, I don't think we're going to make any progress with people like her because she's too concerned with people, how they perceive her as an intellectual. Or as a scientist, or as an expert in multiple fields, or she's trying so hard to make social science more respected than it. Which I have no problem with her wanting to do that, but it is getting a little. I think she's getting a little bit repetitive with it, and I like her videos and the script she writes in them. But every time I've heard her on a live stream, I think she's like a contradiction. I think she contradicts herself all the time, and I don't think she's as well studied in a lot of the stuff she's arguing, especially when it comes to political philosophy. And that doesn't mean she doesn't know a lot about psychology and sociology. But I don't know. Like I said, yeah, the crying was just too much for me. And I don't want to be rude about it because it's not like I'm a cold-hearted person. I feel bad that she cried, but it didn't feel like crying out of being sad. It was just like it was very reactionary, like she was too invested in it. I mean, it sounded like Kraut was breaking up with her. It sounded like some girl was getting dumped by her boyfriend, which is just weird because she has a boyfriend in real life and it's not Kraut. I mean, I'm a fan of some YouTubers, but oh my god. And that's the thing, I think she is manipulative. I think that she does use the fact that she's a woman and her voice and the way she uses her emotions to get people to sympathize with her. I think she knows how to manipulate people because she understands psychology. I think she does a lot of things to get you to empathize with her. And, you know, I really like that she talks super fast, like I talk super fast. And once again, I'm not trying to crap on her. I like her content and I like her videos. You listen to Mark Levin. I know you aren't conservative, but I was curious. I'm not conservative. I'm libertarian, but I probably agree with conservatives more than I do liberalism. But that doesn't mean I'm against everything on either side. Psychology is a science. The issue comes when you try to mix with the other side. I mean, listen, I'm not against psychology or sociology. I don't have any issues with those fields. It's just that she talks as if she's an expert in multiple fields when that's her field. Like that Kraut debate. She kept arguing, you know, I'm a scientist, I'm a scientist, I'm a scientist. And they're talking about fields that she has no degrees and no qualifications in, you know. And she's talking as if because she has this PhD that she can discuss climate change, and they don't relate at all. And I would just like some consistency with that. Is Aiden pretty? She's not bad looking. She doesn't look too far off from her avatar. She looks almost pretty close to it. I'd say the Avatar's slightly prettier, obviously, but you know that's opinion based. But she's not like bad looking, no. But yeah, I mean, I get why she was upset. All of her stuff got leaked, you know. But it wasn't like she was doing a good job of hiding herself. That's why doxing's kind of silly. It's like if I ever got doxed, it's like, well, there's nothing about me I'm that embarrassed about, and I've never really lied and hid anything about myself. I don't really hold any secrets, so. Once again, I'm not trying to crap on it. It's just been bothering me. That whole Warski stream was terrible. You go back and listen to the Destiny debate, and it's so telling that she almost jumped on this like a bandwagon because it was giving her some emotional fulfillment to feel part of the community. And the emotions of it are just getting really silly. Now, don't get me wrong, Naked Ape yelling at Kraut is one of the funniest things ever, and I'm obsessed with that and the memes of it. And Warski's show's been pretty cool, like when he gets JF on and all that stuff. But yeah, I'm just sick of these of the skeptics getting together trying to talk about hard science when really barely anyone there. There's only ever like one person who's qualified to even be discussing the things they're talking about. And it's just getting really pretentious and out of the ballpark. It used to be that with the skeptic thing, you would take something like an article or some event that happened that involved SJWs, and you would just react to it in a very practical way and try to explain your reasoning of why this happened. You would try to make a good argument. Instead, or you made fun of it, you made jokes. Now it's like they're trying to turn into straight-up intellectuals, and it's just, oh my god, it just gets so... It's just aggravating. It's just a bunch of noise to me now, and I think Aiden Paladin's a product of, I hate to throw out the word pretentious, but I just think it's, yeah, feeling unvalidated in your field or how people appreciate you, and you just need some kind of respect and craving it from people that you think should give it to you, and just... I don't know, people who act like they're an expert and everything, it just gets really old to me. And yeah, I think that's why a lot of people lose debates to Destiny. They go to debate Destiny and they think he's just some moron. Now, he's manipulative and he uses very skeezy tactics, but if you can stay sharp about yourself, you keep your wits about you, you can definitely beat Destiny in a debate easily. The problem is that most people go in there unprepared. They go in not prepared to talk about all these things. They don't really have a defense for a lot of the things that he's going to bring up. And then they just start using analogies and ranting on, and it just gets a little bit too... Sargon and V are the only two people that community's worth the damn. What about... Man, Shoe on Head is the worst. I have no like for Shoe. I never liked Shoe. Well, I kind of used to like Shoe on Head. I'll take that back, but... Yeah, Shoe on Head's terrible. She's not even that smart. Have you even watched those reviews she does with Armored Skeptic? Like, I don't even know if she has a working brain. I don't know how much over the line she is on the whole, like, oh my god. It's like she literally knew nothing about any of the stuff she's talking about, and then one day just decided to make a YouTube video about it. She even claims this now. She didn't know anything about this stuff. She doesn't know anything about science, history, philosophy. She's very little studied in that stuff, and she just made videos one day being quirky and 480, and they got clicks because she's a girl on videos talking about MRA stuff. These little 7-minute basic videos. And, yeah, I mean, to me, she's like the worst kind of person in the community because it's just generic YouTube-esque content, no effort, no real analysis, no real commentary, nothing of substance. Which I don't care, you know, if she wants to be funny, that's cool, but her and her boyfriend, Greg, yeah, to me, they're trash. I have nothing good to say about either one of them. Nothing intellectually stimulating. There's nothing about her that's even kind of slightly interesting, except for her rabbits, which I'm a fan of the Lops myself, so I enjoy that she has rabbits. But beyond that, I have, like I said, not really a big fan. But that's just, once again, everyone can have a different opinion. Let me go back to my original point so I can get to the box office finally, because I've been going on a rant now for, let's see how long. Oh, almost 20 minutes. So I'm sorry if I'm talking about skeptic community stuff that doesn't have anything to do with box office or movies, and you guys are all like, what are you talking about? Can you talk about something else? What I was trying to get at originally, and you guys can ask me questions about anything, honestly, because it's New Year's show. It's a special. We're here celebrating the months we've spent together. When you have a video that gets a lot of hits, right, you start to get a lot of... You get a lot of comments. Right now, that Star Wars video I made has over 1,000 comments on it. And when you have that many comments, you get a lot of positives. Most people are positive. The video's got 1,000 likes to like 90 dislikes. The ratio's terrific. Yeah, no, yeah, thank you, Bathory. Thank you for reminding me of how loquacious I am, or as I like to think I am. I'm probably just I like hearing myself talk too much, probably. The thing with it, though, is that a lot of the negative comments are very funny. I was thinking about making a video on this because they get mad at you for very silly things. They get mad about the presentation. They get mad about choices you made, your editing. Which, don't get me wrong, I think you can criticize those things, but they get so obsessed with it like you make a movie. Like, they come at you and they say stuff like, well, why don't you write your movie? Where's your Star Wars film? And it's always these things where it's like, wait, so in order for me to have an opinion on this stuff and give my point of view and some suggestions, some constructive criticism, I have to make a $200 million film? I have to be at the same level of success to talk about something? And that just doesn't make any sense to me. Somebody said your ideas were drivel, which that's fine to have that opinion, but they said, I'll respect you when any of them ever get incorporated into Star Wars. So I said, so because Michael Bay got to do Transformers, I'm supposed to respect him? I don't think that's how this works. And then they tell you don't know how a movie's made, or they tell you that, well, I wanted to watch your video, but it went on too long. And and I think the video's too long. It didn't. All my videos have been too long lately. I haven't been able to make a video under 30 minutes. I tried to keep Call Me By Your Name, Disaster Artist, Ladybird all at 15 minutes, and I couldn't do it. Trust me, people, I know some of the videos are too long. I understand, and I don't have a problem with that. But they reply almost as if you owe them something. That's always the funny thing to me, That's what I always like somehow you're somebody who's doing a service. Like you're a cook at a restaurant and they ordered food and you didn't make their food the way they wanted it, so they're mad at you. Which makes sense in that context if they screw your food up because you pay for it. But somebody who clicks on a YouTube video, they choose to click on the video. That's their decision. And that's that's what I always find funny when you upload a video and it's really just your opinion, your point of view. And that's what you have to be true to, is your point of view and how you feel about things and express it. Somebody always comes in and tries to tell you, well, what does your opinion matter? Why should I care? Why do you think you're mad? You act like you invented celluloid or something like that. And it's like, well, I'll tell you who cares. You did, because you clicked on the video. I didn't ask you to click on this video. I didn't invite you to something and ask for your opinion on it. It's a platform where you upload something and you don't know if it's going to get hits or not. Now, if you have a certain amount of subscribers, that does change, and you probably have expectations. I don't have any expectations. I just upload whatever the hell I want. That's the equivalent of saying you can't talk about cancer if you don't have cancer. That's really what it is. Professional criticism would be impossible if that was the standard. That's the standard people want to set because they're a fan of the movie that you're criticizing, and they're upset that you're critical. So they attack your character, which is, once again, I don't have an issue with that. I'm not trying to say, oh, people are mean to me. But they seem to misunderstand how YouTube works. YouTube's a platform where somebody uploads a video and you click on it, and if you like it, you can watch it and give it a like and leave a comment. If you dislike it, you can leave a dislike, a negative comment, and move on. Or you could just quit watching the video, but people want to tell you, I only got 20 minutes in and then I turned it off. This is so bad. Oh, it's so bad this is 20 minutes in. And I just say to them, hey, I didn't ask you to watch that 20 minutes. Once again, I didn't have a screening for a movie, ask you to pay for a ticket, and then tell me what you think. I uploaded a video that you saw the thumbnail for, that you saw the title for, and that you decided to click on yourself. You decided to click on it, and then whatever you get from that video is on you from that point on. I do not bear any responsibility for your feelings after that. I did not... You can even put ad block on. You don't have to watch ads when you watch my video. So they just get so frustrated because they want you to not have an opinion. And they don't want to say that. They always want to try to work around it and say, listen, everyone has a right to what they say, but there is no but. It's either you agree with me or you don't. State your opinion on why you disagree or agree, and maybe we can have a conversation about it. Instead, it always ends up being, you're a moron, you're an idiot, you don't know anything about this, your ideas are terrible and worse than the ideas in this movie. And it's like, what are your ideas? It's either that you make a video where you're a jerk and you just say this movie sucks and you criticize it and people say you're too lazy to add anything, or you try to make a positive video where you give constructive criticism and then you're a jerk who is arrogant, who thinks he knows everything. So you can't win. You're either somebody who knows nothing, or when you do try to add something, you're a moron who is an idiot. So I'm not saying listen to them. I'm just trying to explain YouTube to some people. I think they don't understand the relationship between a YouTuber and their video and so on. When I upload the video, it's its own thing then, And I don't really care what it is then. I made it and it's over, and I move on to the next video. I'm not concerned anymore with that video. And that's how you have to be. It's not a kit. It's not something I spent all my life working to make. It's not something I developed over years and worked on, and I see myself in that thing, and I'm connected to it because it comes from me. It's something that you make. You hope it does well, and when it does, it does. Now, you know, that when the people don't like a video, that's cool. It's cool. It's just that entitlement. They act like you owe them something, like you owe them a well-edited video. I know how to edit. I edit professionally. I do freelance editing all the time. I'm very lazy with my YouTube videos because I don't have time to spend on editing. I usually record the audio, upload them, and see what happens because it's a hobby. It's fun. I don't do this for a living. It's not my job. And that seems to tick people off. They seem to think that this is your job always. So if you're being held to the standard like they're your boss. It's like, dude, you have the ability to upload on this platform too. You can upload a video. Anyone can. And that's what makes it so cool, is that anyone can upload a video and do whatever they want. It's up to the audience to click on your video and find it. It's very free market based. And, sorry. I only dislike videos that are bad. I don't even do it if I disagree with the point being made. I don't either. I don't try to leave dislikes that much at all. I feel really bad about dislikes. Dislikes bother me. Have you noticed that those who say who cares about your opinion usually seem to care about a lot of what yours is? Yes. I mean, that is typical. You know, and people only say that when you disagree with them. That does seem to be the pattern. Do you think Star Wars will be a dead brand in a decade and perhaps before Rian Johnson does his own trilogy? I think it could be. But that's always possible for Star Wars. Any franchise could be dead for that long. How long does it take you to do freelance? I mean, it takes hours. Editing's a lot of work. If you know, I'm editing a movie right now, and I'm working on a bunch of other stuff, and editing takes weeks, months, hours. It's not skill, it's time. It's how much time you have to edit. I don't have a lot of time to edit one of my videos. This is usually how it goes. I have a topic. I sit around and think about what it is. It's in my mind all day. I hit record. I then take it into an editor. I add some very basic stuff to it, and I edit some of the audio out, and I upload it, and I see what happens. That's pretty much how I do it. I don't do much more than that. I mean, if you want to say research and all that, that comes from just, you know, reading and spending time on researching the topics you want to discuss about. I talk about movies on this channel, so I spend my time watching movies and reading about movies, but I was doing that anyway. Editing literally is just time. If I had 12, 15 hours to edit every video, all my videos would be edited great. And the idea would be, why don't you spend more time on that and make less videos? Because I like to upload, because I have a lot of opinions. And that's all it is, you know, and people like to hear that, and YouTube has this podcasting-esque side to it where people watch videos just to hear your audio, and that's what I think a lot of people who watch my videos come here for. They just listen to it like a podcast, and I think I'm not upset. I'm just saying that people seem to think that with YouTube, you have some sort of responsibility that you would have in anything else. That you have to have it at a certain quality, or you have to make it a certain way. It has to be at a certain standard. Like it should be for a professional movie or anything like that, but it's not how YouTube works. YouTube is a platform where anyone could just click upload and upload something. So, you know, when you choose to click on a video, however you feel about it, you're the one who saw that video and wanted to click on it. And that's what it is. You know, I didn't force you, and nobody on the platform forces you, and you can always turn the video off and you don't have to watch it. And that's fine. Nobody really you can dislike stuff, but just the anger that they get, like you did something against them, like you made this video as a personal vendetta or something like that. Or you just made it to push your own arrogance or something like that. Well, it's like that's not really what I'm doing. But I'm ranting at this point. It's going on. Dunkirk is in my top 5. I'm not going to say what my favorite movie of the year is, but I just watched it recently. And I will say that I like it way more than any other film this year. By quite a bit. In fact, it's so oddly similar to the film that I was working on this year. And I mean similar in the fact that it has the exact same subtext, idea behind it, the choices. It's like kindred spirits. It's like somebody was thinking the same way I was at the same time. Yeah, they do. They get mad about a stranger's opinion on the internet. It's such a weird thing. They get so angry what you think about something when they chose to watch or hear what you said or read what you wrote. You know, they decided to do that, and then they get angry. You know, it's so weird. It's like, you know, you could spend time doing stuff you like doing. That's what I try to do. But the movie I saw recently, I will say this. It came out months ago. It's a low-budget indie film directed by a pair of brothers. And that's all I'm going to tell you. But it's my favorite film of the year by far so far. I still have a few movies to see, so I'll update you guys on that. But my top 10 list is coming out like probably in the next couple weeks, so I'll be soon. I still have to see some movies before I can finish it. But I have most of my list done, and I don't see anything passing my number one. My number one is a movie that I love, and I think I'm going to watch a dozen more times in the next few years. I love it. I already want to watch it again. I've been thinking about it since I saw it, and I want to show it to all my friends, and I'm obsessed with it, and I think it felt new and fresh, and it made me excited. So that's what I'm gonna. Yeah, I can't wait to do my top 10 list. I'm very excited. But let's get to Box Office Addict, all right? Because this has been me ignoring the actual box office. You might be right. You might be right, Ramsey. You might be right about that one. I won't spoil it, but you're pretty on point with that one. Good guess. I like it a lot. I didn't get to do a review of it, but now that I've seen it, I think it is so good, and I don't know why everyone isn't talking about it, and it's so much better than Lady Bird and every other critically acclaimed indie film from this year. I'm going to see The Darkest Hour. But yeah, it's on a whole nother level. And it's so funny. It was exactly the film that I was working on and trying to make and working on myself. Like, it's so funny to me how similar it was. Which is just, you know, it's coincidence. But the of Mice and Men stuff, the Dante's Inferno, the influences like Sidney Lumet or Scorsese, it's very specific things. But I was blown away, and I think it's easily the best movie of the year, and I can't wait to talk about it more. I have so much to say. I think it's what I go to movies for. You know, independent cinema still can be the most penetrating because of the lack of limitations. You can do more ballsy, courageous things that other filmmakers wouldn't do because you have nothing to lose. And this movie really just takes it to another level of, like, nobody else would probably do some of the stuff that's in this movie, and they just wouldn't want to make a movie this trashy and this gritty and this mean-spirited and this, like, characters being so dumb. Oh yeah, Lumet's like my favorite, probably my second, third favorite director. I love Sidney Lumet. In particular, I'm a fan of Dog Day Afternoon, Serpico. I mean, I like 12 Angry Men, but his 70s work, Network. I'm a fan of all that stuff a lot. And I like stuff like Prince of the City. It's all really good stuff like that. But I think what's really good was, yeah, a lot of people are comparing it to Scorsese, and I get that. In particular, After Hours. It's almost like a modern-day After Hours. But I think that it's got a lot of Lumet in it, though. And there's definitely a Dog Day Afternoon influence that was prominent throughout. But God, did I love that movie. I want to watch it so many more times. All right, but let's get to Box Office Addict. Oh, my God. So much to talk about. Not enough time. All right, let's get through this quick. Let's do a speed run on the specialty box office, shall we? I, Tonya, plus 60%, 661,000 in 49 theaters. This film is killing it in limited release. I still have yet to see this movie. I'm very excited for this movie, and I can't wait to see it in Margot Robbie's performance. It's probably going to end up on my top 10 list. I have a feeling about it. It's one of the only movies I have yet to see, so I can make my top 10 list. But I see this ranking very high. It's still only in 49 theaters. On opening weekend, I didn't think it was doing that great. It did okay, but with the weeks, it's been holding pretty well, and with a 60% increase. One thing, too, this is the weekend that a lot of people thought last weekend was going to be. The Christmas weekend, where things didn't drop very big. Everything last weekend dropped pretty steep, especially Star Wars. This weekend, everything held amazingly well. If anything, every movie went up, except for a couple movies. Star Wars only had a 26% drop. This was the weekend that The Last Jedi really needed to make up for last weekend's 67% decline, and to really keep the movie because this pushed it ahead as the highest grossing film of the year domestically, ahead of Beauty and the Beast. So they were able to do it right before 2017 ended, which is what they wanted. It's still pacing way behind The Force Awakens, but that it's still making a crap load of money, and this is the best weekend. In fact, I think this is a better hold than The Force Awakens had its entire run. So I don't know what the budget of I, Tonya is. I'm sure it's probably like 15, 20 million or something like that. But maybe wrong. But yeah, I, Tonya doing really well. So, but everything did. Look at these holds. Like 3 Billboards plus 26%, Disaster Artist plus 7%, Thor plus 19%. Lady Bird plus 42%, Shape of Water plus 16%, Wonder plus 63%. Everything did great this holiday weekend with New Year's on Monday and everything like that. So everything, Jumanji is amazing. Jumanji might actually come out #1 when the actuals come in. And man, everyone who was saying Jumanji was going to bomb, holy crap, not only is it not bombing, Jumanji is one of the biggest hits of the year by far. This movie is making so much money. The weekly box office was great for a lot of the films that had a disappointing opening weekend last week, like The Greatest Showman or Pitch Perfect 3. Downsizing isn't really getting a boost, but a lot of the movies that last weekend didn't have a very good opening weekend. This weekend, big boost to all of their totals. This was Pitch Perfect 3 needed this. Let's put it that way. But yeah, I, Tonya doing great. 3 Billboards, which is at the end of its run, I feel. 26% increase, 665,000, 24.1 million. This is one of the front runners for the Best Picture Oscar in several categories, so we'll see how that plays out. Very acclaimed film from the director of In Bruges. Call Me By Your Name, which I have a review up this week. I just saw this film recently, was able to finally see it. It has made 4.6 million. I believe it has a budget of 3.5 million. That doesn't count what somebody paid to buy the film and then distribute it. So, in marketing, this is one of my favorite movies of the year. It's in my top 5. I think Timothée Chalamet's performance is masterful in its the lack of awareness of acting, that you kind of forget he's acting. He feels like he really is this person. It's very realistic. It's it doesn't really have the vanity that you would think, and some of the just actory things you think a young actor would do. He feels like an actor who's in his 40s that's been doing it a long time and learned how to look like they're not acting. And that's a terrific. Armie Hammer's great. I have problems with this movie, but I still loved it. I have a 30-minute review of it. The soundtrack is my favorite soundtrack of the year. Not even close. It's easily the best. The songs, the original songs. No, but I do want to see Jumanji. I've heard good things. So let's hope. Can we call Justice League a bomb now? I think you can. I think you could call it a bomb. Contextually, you kind of have to. When all factors are considered, you have to call it a bomb. Because it didn't get great reviews. It didn't make near the money they thought it was going to make. And even looking at it that way, it didn't even do that well outside of that. And even if they make any money off of it, the returns are going to be so pathetic in comparison to what they spent that it's a bomb. Because they didn't make enough money off of it or enough of a successful return from audiences or anything like that. It's Logan made more money. It's pathetic. Do you like Pokemon? Yes, I do. Yes, I do. I like the original game series. I like the animated series, the first series, Indigo League. And, yeah, I like the movies, and I like, I played Pokemon Go. I played Pokemon with my girlfriend a lot. I like Pokemon a lot, yes. Thank you for talking about the framing in your review for Call Me By Your Name. That and the pacing remind me of a Sofia Coppola style. I can see that. It's like European while also kind of having an American sensibility. Do you mean like that? Kind of how Sofia does that? Like, she can go to Tokyo and shoot it and kind of get Japanese culture and even somewhat their aesthetics, but she still has this kind of American pragmatism to it. Almost this awareness, I guess, that isn't always in European cinema. Kind of a self-awareness meta. I think, yeah, I get what you mean. I wish she'd make a movie that good. I think she could have made a movie that good years ago. Justice League still doesn't sound like it's as bad as The Last Jedi. It didn't tick me off as much as The Last Jedi. When do you think Timothée Chalamet will end up in a Marvel movie? I'll tell you right now, I would have liked to have seen him as Spider-Man. I'm thinking about that now. Or Harry Osborn. Ooh, what a good choice for Harry Osborn. He's going to be in a lot of stuff. He's going to become a movie star. I mean, he's good looking. He's young. He's got everything going for him. Girls like him. So, you know, you can't really... Yeah, I agree. I agree with you about Netflix. I'm going to watch Black Mirror Season 4 today. I can't wait to see the Star Trek parody episode. I've been hearing a lot about that one. And I'm very, very excited. She knows how to pause to allow for awareness of her surroundings. Yes, that's what a lot of movies are missing today. They don't really let you get a feel for the environment you're in or the location. You know, that's what made Ozu so great and hypnotic as a filmmaker, is that he would let life live. You know, he would just show it. He would put the camera really close to the ground, and he would just show... He would cut to the outside and let you kind of think about the conversation you're hearing. That's a very real conversation. And he would just let the... I mean, I feel like still Asian cinema, Korean cinema, Japanese, still celebrate these things. And I definitely think that with a lot of international cinema. But even a lot of international movies I've watched today that are modern, they have a lot of... The editing's a lot quicker. Everything's put together a lot faster. They don't really give you times. They don't give you a lot of time to soak in the environment when you go to a new place. And that's part of the charm of movies, you know, is one thing I think is really genius about the original Star Wars, New Hope, which Mark Hamill said, you know, when he read the script, he said, oh, this is Wizard of Oz and I'm Wendy, which I think is the best comparison, more so than even the Flash Gordon and all that stuff. I do think it was the Wizard of Oz of its time. And one of the great things about it is the way that the movie is edited. It always keeps the pacing moving very fast, because, you know, his wife and the team of editors had to, you know, there's that great video showing you how much Star Wars was done in editing. But there's also these moments that let you linger, like when Luke looks out at the two suns on Tatooine. It really lets you get a sense of that world and that environment. It makes it feel more lived in, and you having your emotional response to it. And then, you know, then you have quick scenes, like when they're on the ship and they're in the stormtrooper outfits and they fall in the trash compactor and all that to save Leia. That stuff's very quickly edited, but you still get enough time to feel that trash compartment. You still get to really feel all the dirt in there, and you get to see all the muck of it. And that was very... that's one thing I love about that movie, is that they let you have enough time to get the sense of the environment, but then it goes right back to character interactions and what they need to do. Action tells story in that movie. George Miller was also great at that with the Mad Max movies. He lets you get enough time to really soak the world in before he takes you right back into a non-stop thrill ride, you know. And in that way, it almost works in the way that comic books do. That you can look at a panel of a comic book, even if it's a series of action panels where someone's fighting, and then, you know, they have the splash page, and you really get to get a sense of everything that's going on, and you get a better sense of geography and a sense of place. And I think George Miller and those guys, they really understand that pulp sensibility and that what's necessary about the environment. How the environment's just as important as the characters you put in that environment, and both deserve equal attention. Worst film of 2017, in my opinion, Transformers: The Last Time, and that's probably the worst one. You gonna see The Irishman? Well, yeah, of course. It's gonna be on Netflix, and it's directed by Scorsese, so of course I'm gonna see it. But yeah, Call Me By Your Name is doing okay. It's not doing great. Out of a lot of the films on the specialty box office, it is certainly not the one that is dominating it. I think its Best Picture chances are fleeting, even though it's honestly like right there with Lady Bird and Dunkirk in reviews and so on. But I think its best chance is original song, which it deserves. For Vision of Gideon, quite honestly, Timothy Chalamet could beat Gary Oldman, but it's up in the air if that's going to happen. He'd be the youngest Oscar winner for Best Actor ever. It would surpass Adrian Brody, who was like 27 when he won for The Pianist. Daddy's Home 2 and Murder on the Orient Express, which have stayed close together this whole time, finally cross $100 million each. $55 million budget for Murder, $100 million domestic, $326 million worldwide. It's a hit. It's a full-blown hit. That is actually one of the best pulled-off financial executions of the year, in my opinion. From marketing, the concept, the cast, the money it's making, the franchise possibilities that there's going to be sequels. Honestly, couldn't have done much better than what it did. That was a great performance. Daddy's Home 2 is at $101 million and $174 million worldwide. Still not really close to the original film's worldwide or domestic total, but it's still making money. It's another $100 million film for Wahlberg and Farrell, which keeps their stock very high in the business. If you could still pull in that much money, even if the budget's $69 million, studios are going to keep giving you work. The Disaster Artist, James Franco playing Tommy Wiseau. I also have a review up for this movie. This has been dropping at the box office really, really bad every week, and I totally get it. I didn't find the film that good myself. I thought it was passable and a fun distraction, but I don't think it was a very engaging experience, and I think it was lacking a lot of information, which most likely had to do with Tommy Wiseau not letting James Franco include that information. This weekend it has a 7% increase, but that's because of the holiday and it being in less theaters. This went wide, but because of its steep drops over the last 2 weeks, they've already taken it out of most theaters. It's already in half the theaters it was in. After a really good opening weekend of $6 million, that was a great opening. It wasn't able to hold on. A $6 million opening and only $17 million domestic. This is going to be out of theaters in the next 2 to 3 weeks. It's at $20 million worldwide, $10 million budget, not including marketing and all that. So I don't think they've made any money off this movie, but it's still going to get an Oscar nomination. I'm almost certain for James Franco, and he could even win too. It's a weird year. Thor Ragnarok, $1 million, 19% increase. There's not much more to add to Thor Ragnarok. $311 million domestic, $848 million worldwide. Mega hit. Justice League, $1.2 million, $225 million, which puts it $1 million below Logan. So right now the film should be able to scratch to get to 230, just barely, and I mean barely. And it's at $652 million worldwide. This is a film with a $300 million production cost and $150 million marketing campaign. So you have $450 million in the movie. Let's just even say 400, and you have $652 million worldwide. So if they kept even 60% of the ticket sales, they still didn't make profit off this. This is a disaster, both internationally and domestically. Wonder Woman performed better than this. Man of Steel performed better than this. Batman v Superman performed better than this. This is the worst performing modern DC live-action superhero film. It did not go well for anyone. And this is probably the end of Zack Snyder and his run at DC, and even for Joss Whedon, this is kind of a disaster. Everything about this really just fell apart. But you got to blame the producers for even going into a movie that was so had such a lack of being fleshed out in its screenplay, or even having Snyder back, or rushing into it and then trying to fix it in post-production and reshoots and all that. One of the worst produced films of all time, and one of the biggest financial disasters of all time. You have one of the most expensive movies ever made, not being able to compete with Thor or Wonder Woman or Guardians or Spider-Man, and it features superheroes that are equal to, if not even more popular than the heroes in those movies. How did a single Spider-Man movie outgross a film with all of these characters? It's pretty pathetic. There's really no positive spin. You could have given a positive spin to Batman v Superman, because it still did pretty well, and a lot of fans defend that movie, but this just showed that the DC brand had lost all trust with fans, in particular people in the Snyder films. I thought Wonder Woman was going to give the film an extra boost, but I was wrong about that. The opening weekend was abysmal, and it continued on. Lady Bird is now the highest-grossing film from A24, who's having a great year. This is the year of A24. All of their films are getting great reviews. Almost everything's been making a slight profit. This film cost $10 million from Greta Gerwig, starring Saoirse Ronan. It's one of the films that could win Best Picture. It's definitely up there. Best Actress for Laurie Metcalf seems like almost a lock. Supporting actress. $31 million. This puts it ahead of Moonlight, which had a $27 million total. And so yeah, this is I thought Disaster Artist was going to be their biggest movie, but it turns out it's Lady Bird. So yeah, for A24, this is definitely a big success. I also have a review out for this movie from this week. I reviewed Lady Bird, which I did like, but it's not one of my favorites, and I thought it was just good. Molly's Game from Aaron Sorkin, which is a film I'm very excited to see, starring Jessica Chastain, has a $2.3 million opening weekend in 271 theaters. That's not bad, but it's not great either, with only an 8,000 average. It's made $5.2 million domestic. We'll have to see how this one holds up in the coming weeks. Wonder from Steven Chbosky, another film I review up, had a 63% increase. This $20 million budgeted film has a $121 million domestic total and $197 million worldwide. It is going to be one of the most profitable films of the year, and it also got great reviews, and I would argue that Jacob Tremblay deserves Oscar consideration for his performance, which I think is incredible, and equal to his great performance in The Room. Justice League is the modern-day Waterworld. Yeah, or even Heaven's Gate, but I like the Waterworld comparison. I actually think that's pretty on point, because then you see it, and it's not really a terrible movie, it's just a painfully mediocre one, that you could tell that the best they were going for is mediocre, which is very much what Waterworld ended up being. They should have just released the Snyder Cut, at least then they wouldn't have wasted all the millions. I agree with you, because the movie didn't make any more money because of those reshoots, so why not just release the original Snyder version and take the hit? You already screwed the pooch anyway. I don't know what they were thinking. Here is a pitch I have for a South Park episode that would actually be funny. Disney Mickey buys the town of South Park. That's actually a really, I think that is a cool idea. I would like to see that. That Disney's just buying everything, and Mickey comes to town and tells them what to do, and he starts changing everything, and they don't like how he's changing it, but people get nostalgic. But Wonder's a huge hit. The Shape of Water from Guillermo del Toro, who's also one of the people running for Best Picture and Best Director. We're going to have to wait for the Directors Guild Awards for that. 756 theaters. 3 million opening weekend when it went wide. I believe that was last weekend or even this weekend. I'm not quite sure. But anyway, it's made $15.6 million. This is a $20 million film from Del Toro. It's doing well, but it's not doing great either. And we're going to have to really wait for the, I think, Oscar nominations and all that for people to really seek this movie out, because it's still kind of going under the radar outside of Del Toro fans and genre fans. Downsizing from Alexander Payne, a very mixed reviewed film. His biggest budget film, $68 million. Last weekend was a terrible opening weekend of $4.9 million. $17 million domestic. I think this is still a bomb. Darkest Hour is doing surprisingly well. Did anyone think Darkest Hour would do this well? Like, legit, did anyone think a movie about Churchill during the hours of the time of Dunkirk those days? And could you imagine that a movie like that about what he was figuring out was to do at that time in World War II? Can you believe that movie with Gary Oldman in makeup? No, wrong. I think this movie, from what I've seen, I mean, Joe Wright's a brilliant visualist, and it looks like it has amazing cinematography. And I'm sure it has some great tracking shots and all that. But it just seemed like one of those boring period piece films that mainstream audiences wouldn't go for. Now, don't get me wrong, The King's Speech made $400 million worldwide. And I think was actually the last Best Picture winner that was actually a big hit like that. But, yeah, did anyone think this film would be doing so well? This film's doing really well. I mean, I know Gary Oldman's getting a lot of acclaim for this performance, and the film itself's getting pretty good reviews, but I would have never thought that, because there's a lot of movies like this every year about a historical event or historical figure, and they don't make money like this. You know, Dunkirk doesn't really count because that was an action blockbuster as much as it was a history. It probably was more so a spectacle-driven film. But yeah, this film is... But this film's actually doing really, really well. Way better than I was expecting. In comparison to Joe Wright's recent films, too. You know, like Pan bombed. You know, Hannah did okay. The Soloist didn't do that well. I mean, he hasn't had a film do that great since Atonement. And this is already outpacing all of those films. Not Atonement and Pride and Prejudice, but I'm impressed. $5 million this weekend, not even in 1,000 theaters yet. So, see this film getting some Oscar nominations, too. I think several, and the fact it's doing so well at the box office is only a testament to that. It had a 35% increase, so look out for Darkest Hour. All the money in the world from Ridley Scott, with Christopher Plummer replacing Kevin Spacey last minute. $12 million domestic on a $5.4 million opening weekend. This movie opened a few days ago. I believe it opened on Christmas. It's doing okay, but... I figured this would do about what this was. Sid and Nancy's this best. Oh man, Sid and Nancy, so good, so good, love it. Great movie. Alex Cox, that was his name, right? Didn't he do that? And Repo Man, God, he did another movie too that I really like. I mean, he directed a few, but he was. I think it was called Walker. With Ed Harris, I believe, was a film I have on Criterion, but I think it's called Walker. Really good movie. Anyway, though, $5.4 million opening weekend. You know, for Mark Wahlberg, he doesn't always bring in big box office. Deepwater Horizon didn't do that great. Patriots Day didn't do that great. Not every one of his films is a hit. It really depends on the movie. This is doing what I thought with Michelle Williams, decent reviews, Ridley Scott, the kind of movie it is, even with the controversy around it. This was never going to be a big hit blockbuster. Hopefully they didn't spend too much on the movie, but it feels like they spent a lot probably on production value, details, costumes, locations, reshooting the movie. So I don't know if they'll make much of a profit as of right now. We'll have to wait and see how the word of mouth is, but it's not doing bad, but it's not doing anything that's worth noting either. Coco, $6.5 million, 22% increase. This movie really needed this because this $200 million animated film is looking like it's going to have a hard time to even reach $200 million, I think. Had a great opening weekend of $50 million, but the momentum has just not been there in comparison to many other animated films, especially from the studio. $359 million foreign is really carrying it over with its big budget, and that's not counting marketing. I'm sure they've made a profit for $500 million or around there. Hopefully it makes $600 million worldwide plus so they can really have it. But this is a disappointing domestic total. This is from the director of Toy Story 3. This is not in comparison to Finding Dory or anything of recent that's made a lot of money. It's doing better than the Good Dinosaur, that movie. That movie didn't do well at all. But this is not one of their biggest movies. This is kind of performing on par with WALL-E, except it's doing even less domestically. And for such a critically acclaimed film that a lot of people seem to love, I thought this film would do a lot better. Can we blame release date? Did this actually backfire, releasing this film during November and in the holidays? Do some of us think this movie might have performed better in the summer, or actually performed better in earlier in the year? It has a budget of $50 million. Yeah, I don't see them making a lot of money off that movie then. Yeah. Walker is very good. Yes, it is. Underrated movie, too. Might show up on Underrated Classics. Coco was made for family weekends, Christmas, Thanksgiving. Yeah, but I don't think it worked. I think it backfired. I think that was their idea, but I actually think it backfired. I think this subject matter, the Day of the Dead, and the culture, I don't think it translated to a holiday box office boost. I think they would have been much better off releasing this earlier in the year. I think too many movies came out that caused competition. And I think Coco kind of lost all of its hype after its first weekend. I mean, look at this. I mean, it's probably not going to make $200 million, and if it does, it's barely going to make that. And for a film that cost that much and has, you know, such great reviews, I mean, Zootopia did way better than this. Moana did way better than this. This is not that big of a movie. I mean, it hasn't even reached Tangle's totaled yet, and Tangle was a disappointment financially. You know, it did. Yeah, it failed. Yeah, they tried to go for that holiday. I get what they were going for, but it wasn't a success. I think they misread it. Because every drop was, you know, over 40-something% except for 2 weekends. And this is the first weekend it's actually had a really good hold. But that $50 million and the $27 million... You know, animated films usually drop in the 30% range, and Coco has not been holding that well. It doesn't mean people dislike it. There's just a lot to see. And it just didn't seem to get that holiday boost they were hoping. You know, even this weekend, it's not doing that great. Hey, good to see you, Fallen Angel. Good to see you, man. Hey, man, Coco, no issues with Coco. I'm just saying, financially speaking, I think it's a bit of a disappointment. At least domestically. That doesn't mean that it's not going to make a lot of money. It's just not performing to what I think they were expecting it to. Ferdinand having a great boost. 11.6 million, 59%. This is from the director of the Ice Age movies. And he pretty much makes his movies for Latin America exclusively, it feels like. But he also directed the Rio series. But yeah, $53 million domestic. This film has a big budget of $111 million. But it seems like it's going to make its money back worldwide. I've heard this movie's pretty bad. It had a $13 million opening weekend, so this is actually a great weekend for it. And they really needed that. The Greatest Showman also benefited from this weekend, just like Star Wars did in Pitch Perfect. 73% increase. Awesome. This is better than its opening weekend. $15.2 million, man. This is that holiday hold. Film only had an $8 million opening weekend. It looked like a bomb. $84 million budget. Hugh Jackman made the movie. It was getting mixed reviews. But then, bam, second weekend, great hold. It's at $48 million domestic and $83 million worldwide. I said I didn't think this film could even make $50 million domestic. Boy, was I wrong. The week holds really... That doesn't mean it's not going to... It's going to have a huge, steep drop next weekend. Don't let these holds deceive you. It's like Thanksgiving. These movies are all going to do way better, and then next weekend they're going to have like 50% plus drops. Movies like this especially that really benefit from the holidays. But still, this helps with the blow of the bad opening weekend. So kudos to Hugh Jackman and everyone involved. This might end up making a profit worldwide. It's already at its budget, but that doesn't count marketing and how much they get from the tickets. But good performance so far. This weekend really kind of puts it back like, okay, let's see how it does next weekend. Pitch Perfect 3, 10% drop, 17.7 million at the box office. It's now at 64 million, which it also needed. The weekday box office was great. But for context, Pitch Perfect 2 on its opening weekend was 69 million, and that was in 2015. So it still hasn't even reached the opening weekend of the previous film. But this is actually the entire domestic total of the first movie, which was 65 million. But it cost 45 million, so this one costs a little bit more, so they haven't made a lot of profit yet. But it looks like it should be able to make 100 million domestically, and worldwide it should do even better than that, honestly. But let's look at the daily box office, actually. If you actually go back and look at the weekday numbers... Hold on. My bad. I clicked on the wrong thing. But if you actually go look at the daily box office for movies like this was a great week for a lot of these movies that didn't perform really great on their weekends. Like Monday, 6 million. Tuesday, 7 million. Wednesday, 6 million. Thursday, 6 million. So that was huge for this movie and had to get up to 46 million before we even went into the weekend. Same thing with Star Wars and Jumanji and The Greatest Showman. They all benefited from the week being people being out of school and people being out of work. You know, when kids get out of school, families go to see movies at the box office. I mean, just look at Star Wars. Look at these daily numbers, these holds, okay? So let's look at this. We have to look at this Monday. 27 million, 27 million, 21, 19 million, you know. So every week it was making just a crap load of money. I mean, every day. And that really put its total over the top. So that helps take the damage off the blow of the opening week. The second weekend having such a big drop. And some of these movies not opening so well. This whole week really helped balance a lot of that out to where these films' final totals look a lot better than they do before. People liked musicals. I mean, La La Land was a huge hit last year, man. It made 450 million worldwide. So, you know, and this was, the music here was done by the La La Land guy. Or the team. I don't know if La La Land was a couple people who did the music. Okay, but Pitch Perfect 3, not on par with the second one so far, but it's still not a bomb, and this weekend it's a great performance for it. Before we move up, let's look down here and see if I forgot anything. The Post from Steven Spielberg is in 9 theaters, 539,000. I think this film's going to do pretty well when it goes wide. It only cost 50 million, but Bridge of Spies did well, Lincoln did well. You really can't go wrong. Phantom Thread from Paul Thomas Anderson, very critically acclaimed. 531,000 domestically, opening of 220,000 in 4 theaters, which is a 55,000 per screen average. Now, if I'm correct, I believe The Master actually had a much better and Inherent Vice screen average on their openings. Yes, Inherent Vice, I mean, The Master had 147,000 average. It was one of the greatest limited openings there ever was. And then it went on to only make 16 million. Inherent Vice also had a great... It's the thing about PTA, man. He gets a lot of hype and then his movies just dwindle out. Yeah, it had a 65,000 average in 5 theaters. So this is a weaker average than his previous films. But I think this film's going to make more money and hold better. I've heard this film's more accessible than both The Master and Inherent Vice. It's shorter. Those films are both 2.5 hours. This film is... I mean, The Master's like 2 hours and 20 minutes. This film's 2 hours and 10 minutes. I hear it's funnier. It's a better reviewed film than his recent films. It's his best reviewed film since There Will Be Blood. It's got Daniel Day-Lewis in it. No, I know it doesn't go wide, but it's not really... You can go see his other movies in limited release, and they had better limited openings. They had better screen averages than this movie in 4 to 5 theaters. So this doesn't seem to quite have the hype they did initially, but I think it's going to have better word of mouth. I think people are going to come out. I think people were really hyped for The Master and for Inherent Vice because they had great trailers. And I don't like Inherent Vice at all, and I think The Master is a mixed bag. It's got great scenes and bad scenes at once. It's a decent movie. Like, I'd give it like a 7. I like it, but I think it's really flawed. Amazing acting. But this seems like a film, from what I've heard, it's more funny. It seems to have more appeal. It seems to be a film that could actually get a bit of traction. Because PTA hasn't made a movie since that's made money. I don't know if ever. I think since Boogie Nights, he hasn't had a film really make a profit. And I'm pretty sure this film costs like $30 million or 20-something. So hopefully this one can make a profit for the financiers, the people who invested in this. Because I love PTA, but he loses money for people. If even you're a fan of his, Inherent Vice lost money. The Master lost money. They speak English in this one. Unlike Southern 70s Cali, 70s Southern Cali lingo in Inherent Vice. Inherent Vice's dialogue was just gibberish. What's up with crappy video game movies? There was a lot of crappy comic book movies, but they seem to have got good ones. Yeah, I don't know why the video game movies haven't gotten any good. I think somebody would have figured it out by now, right? But nope. Okay, Jumanji, Welcome to the Jungle. Holy crap, is this movie doing well? Oh my god, it's doing better than the original Jumanji by far. I mean, this is just showing that you can take an old brand like a Jumanji, some film that was based off a photo book in the 90s, some Robin Williams vehicle, some CGI vehicle that people have a lot of nostalgia for, and then put big actors in it like The Rock and Kevin Hart and Jack Black. And then it's actually, from what I've read, a decent movie. I mean, it has like 78% on Rotten Tomatoes. I've heard it's not a great movie, but I've heard it's funny. And the actors do really good jobs playing teenagers, because they're teenagers in these adult bodies. Like Kevin Hart's character is like a big jock guy, but he's in Kevin Hart's body. Jack Black's a teenage girl. And they're in a video game instead of a board game, and they have to go by video game rules. So it's kind of like it's kind of almost like a Scott Pilgrim. Yeah, see, $35 million, I don't think Phantom Thread can make that money back. That's the problem with PTA, man. Pat, thanks for doing a great channel. It's intelligent, it's logical, it's been like a breath of fresh air. Looking forward to 2018 and what you bring to it. Well, hey, man, I only bring what you guys help me bring. So, yeah, let's do it together. 2018 is going to be awesome. We're going to grow this channel. I'm right on the cusp of 5,000 subs. I was struggling the last 2 months. I wasn't able to add any subs. But luckily, that Star Wars video has brought like 200 new subscribers to the channel. So we're right there at the tip of 5,000. So if anyone's a new subscriber that just joined this week, I'd like to welcome you to the channel and the shows and everyone here. And let's keep this community growing, guys. Let's get this... Because really, it's all just about having fun and you know, talking shit and all that. And talking about movies and not taking ourselves so seriously, as I can tend to do in my real life. So I try to avoid that on here. If there will be a good video game movie, I would like to see someone do Xenoblade Chronicles movie trilogy based on the original game. Man, I think that would be damn near impossible. You always want the craziest movies to get made. You want like Evangelion, you want Berserk, you want Xenoblade, you want these things that would be so hard to make into a film that's not a total mess. Like, it's like, man, dude, I give you credit. You are an ambitious-minded individual. You want these movies that are, like, just near impossible for anyone to pull off. Yeah, you got this almost Jodorowsky insanity. But, bro, you deserve way more subs. Hey, man, thanks. You know, like I said, like when I started here, last year I had those videos do so well. They got 100,000 hits. I really thought my channel was going to blow up, and it just kind of just stabilized for a while. And then, you know, a couple other videos like the Alien vid do well. But luckily with that Star Wars video, I think it's because I don't do more like, why this movie sucks, why this movie's good, top 10 reasons this movie's bad. You know, I just don't really do a lot of titles like that, and that's how you get clicks. You know, my goal right now is just to pass 5,000. And then think about 6,000. You just take it like that. You know, my goal is not to think, oh, I got to get to 20,000. You know, it's a process. You got to do the grind. And hits matter more than subs even. You can think about how many channels have... there's so many channels now that have hundreds of thousands of subscribers and nobody watches their videos anymore because they're like a dead channel. So, you know, as long as you can keep consistent hits, which I think I've been able to have consistently decent hits, then your channel, you know, can still kind of stick around. Whereas... sub count just depends on how many of your subs actually watch your videos. Or if they can see them. Almost, I know at least half of my subscribers don't get notifications for, like, most of my videos. I know that. So there's a lot of people out there that would watch some of my videos, I think, and they don't get a chance to see them. I hear from them all the time. They go, man, I didn't even know you were still making stuff. And they're like, I love your stuff. And they come and find me again, and it's really funny. I would love to have seen Kubrick do a video game movie. Yeah. That would, well, you know when Dave goes to deactivate Hal, that's kind of like a video game sequence, isn't it? You know, it's all tense and you have to go like keep screwing the things out one and one at a time. It's kind of like a video game. But anyway, Jumanji is doing great. Like I said, I think it could win the weekend when the actuals come in. If it actually did better than what they say, or even if Star Wars comes in a little less, you're looking at a film that in its second weekend of release could pass Star Wars, and it should certainly pass Star Wars next weekend. I mean, this is crazy. $36 million opening weekend last weekend, right? In 3,700 theaters. $90 million budget. This is from Jake Kasdan, which I believe is the son of Lawrence Kasdan, who at this point had only had a real hit with Bad Teacher. And Orange County, which is a film that I always thought had a really good script and could have been a great movie written by Mike White, but I just thought it's one of those movies where it has a good script but badly directed and a poor execution of a good story. Now, his film Zero Effect from the 90s I'm still a fan of. And it's actually one of my favorite Ben Stiller roles. He also did Walk Hard. So this is his biggest hit, by far. Not just that, this is the biggest hit for Jack Black ever, I believe. Outside of Kung Fu Panda. Yeah, outside of Kung Fu Panda, this is the biggest Jack Black movie. I guess King Kong, but it's going to pass that domestically. Let's look worldwide. This film is number 6 worldwide for Jack Black, and it should be able to reach... I think it should be able to get somewhere around Kung Fu Panda 3, but still, the domestic total is what we're talking about here. So last weekend it was $36 million, but that wasn't the whole total. It was actually $53 million over the holidays. And then you had Christmas, which put it up to $55 million, and then $72 million. So it ended up making $72 million over, what was it, like 4 days? And... that was huge. That was way above expectations that the film would do that. Well, I mean, it basically had a blockbuster opening. I mean, if they had opened it on just a 3-day weekend, it probably would have had like a $65 million opening weekend or something like that. Like, this movie was just poised to make money. Everything went well here. The reviews went well. The trailer went well. The casting went well. The property, the IP that they decided to go with went well. So then you have a second weekend here during these great holds during New Year's, and it's $50 million, man. That is crazy. So you go from a $36 million opening, which would have been higher, don't get me wrong, which I just said, but still, a $50 million second weekend, 38% increase. The movie is already at $169 million domestically on a $90 million budget. I like your attitude. Is on a $90 million budget. This film is going to make $200 million domestic and then some. This is like a Night at the Museum situation. I could see this film making $250 million to $300 million domestically easily. At the pacing it's going right now, I mean, it's had to have already made a profit. It's a $90 million movie, and it's already made $170 million and $322 million worldwide. This would have been a great final total. If the final total for this movie had just been this, we'd all go, well, that was a hit movie. That did really well. But the fact this is just its second weekend is astounding. That means that this is going to make $250 million. That means this could make $450 to $500 million worldwide, if not more, and all on a $90 million budget. So you're looking at a film that's going to make a lot of profit. This is going to be Jack Black's biggest film ever that he's been in. This is going to be one of The Rock's biggest films. Not voice acting in an animated film, I mean live action. This is going to be Kevin Hart's highest grossing film, if it's already not. To be honest with you, this is already probably number 1. Yeah, it's number 2, A Secret Life of Pets. That's voice animation work. But yeah, live action, yeah, this is already Kevin Hart's biggest movie. So all around, this is one of the most successful films of the year when you take all of those factors in. That it's big stars, a decent budget, not too big of a budget, a franchise which people didn't know if it would hold up, and it just shows you that, yeah, they could have just done a remake of Jumanji, but they did something different than that, and they got rewarded for it, which was a good idea. Do you think hand-drawn animation will return someday? I think in an internet-like form, like YouTube videos did, or on some kind of Netflix platform or something. I don't think we'll really see them much in the theater much, no. Even most anime today isn't hand drawn, totally. You know, and that was something that you could always rely on. I'm fashionably late. What did I miss? Me ranting about the skeptic community for no reason for like 25 minutes. And then talking about YouTube comments. And then me actually getting to the box office way too late. But that's all you've missed so far. On this wonderful show. This wonderful, wonderful program. I like that David Letterman attitude where I try to act like I'm as dumb as anyone that could click on this video, and I don't really care, you know. That's the right, or maybe Larry Sanders do some Gary Shandling, get really self-aware with it. Star Wars: The Last Jedi. Now this is the weekend this movie needed. This is the kind of weekend a Star Wars movie should have. Yeah, 20 minutes talking about the skeptic community. That was a little ridiculous. The postmortem on Baywatch was that it was a juvenile misfire. I've heard it's a terrible movie. Yeah, it didn't look that good. You're hand-drawn, Pat. Oh my god, you're right, I am hand-drawn. I was hand-drawn as a little baby Pat, and I grew up to have this terrible blonde hair and look like James Vanderbeek from 1997. It's very weird. You're actually right, I am hand-drawn. That's really funny. Oh my god. Ugh. Okay. But anyway, Star Wars: The Last Jedi. After last weekend's terrible drop, which was the steepest drop for any Star Wars film ever, I believe, except maybe that animated Clone Wars film, but live-action film. 67% drop, which they were trying to say, oh, it had competition with Jumanji. It didn't do as well as we expected on Christmas, which I thought that was insane that they said any of that stuff. So that seemed like a reflection of word of mouth. But because of this week, everyone being out of school and people having more time off work and more time to spend with their families, the movie did great during the weekday. It's now the highest grossing film of the year domestically. It still hasn't surpassed Beauty and the Beast worldwide. It passed $1 billion this weekend in its third weekend. And with a $52 million weekend, which, don't get me wrong, this is just because of the holiday, and it's going to also get a huge boost tomorrow. Tomorrow's going to be a big day for the box office, Monday. All of these movies are going to benefit from Monday. Next weekend, this is going to go back to probably where it was going before from last weekend. Now, that's not me trying to give it a negative spin. I'm just saying that, you know, they released this movie to perform this way, that it would hold really well. That's why they released these movies during December. Star Wars benefits from the holiday release more so than any other release, because if families go out to see movies and they go, what am I going to go see? And they're like, oh, let's just go see Star Wars. So it's kind of a perfect match, December with the Star Wars movie. But I don't think they were expecting Jumanji to do so well. But let's look at Force Awakens for comparison, because I have no idea what Force Awakens did on its third weekend. I believe it was 90 million, and it was a 39% drop, which was a bigger drop, but it made more money, so there's context with that. Like, sure, the third weekend for Last Jedi is a 26% drop, but it made 54 million. Well, yes, the third weekend of Last Jedi. Man, I can't believe I remember that crap, man. Force Awakens. That's weird stuff to remember, people. I've looked at these numbers way too much. But yeah, the first weekend for Force Awakens was 247 million. Then the second weekend was 150 million, basically, 39% drop. And it was at 540 million by its second weekend, which this movie still isn't. Last Jedi's still not there yet. And then to have a third weekend at 90 million, sure, the drop was bigger, but they made more money, and that film was then at 742 million in its third weekend. So Last Jedi is trailing $200 million plus behind this movie at the same time. And then its fourth weekend was 42 million, which that would shock me if that was what Last Jedi does next week, and I'm expecting somewhere in the 20s. And yeah, so it's still tracking below that. Now, it is surpassing Rogue One. And even though Rogue One had a better second weekend overall and about the same performance, it didn't do as well this weekend. But let's go look at Rogue One again just to make sure totally. Because the only thing I can compare these films to are recent Star Wars films. It's really not fair to compare them to other movies because it's its own brand and it brings in its own audience. And, you know, you can compare them to Marvel movies, but I don't even think that's a really fair comparison. The third weekend for Rogue One was 49 million, so it was pretty much the same, yeah. It was pretty much the same weekend. That's so weird. Man, Rogue One really got screwed with that opening weekend because if you look at it, that $155 million opening, but then those holds were so good. Even though the second week was a 58% drop, but really, if it had a bigger opening weekend, that film would have made even more money. It wasn't until January that Rogue One really started to drop off. It made so much money in just December, over the course of just like 2 to 3 weeks. It made so much money. And then by the time it came to January, you started getting the 55% drops, 46, 44. Some weeks did better than others, but it kind of it kind of moved very slowly to get to that 532 domestic total. But still, Star Wars movies can be front-loaded, but when you're making this kind of money... Also, you have to understand, Disney is keeping 65% of the profits from the ticket sales on this movie. They made a deal with the theater chains to where they keep 65%. Now, their argument is that they're going to make so much money off concessions and people coming to the movie and all that, which is probably true. More people are going to see this than anything else. So, yeah, this movie is making them a lot of money because they're making a lot of profit up front. If they're keeping 65% of that, and that's already made $517 million and $1 billion worldwide, and it's a $200 million film, maybe $250 million film probably, and more than that, but still. Our first argument, man. Pat has a very good review of Your Name Up. I do, and I love that movie. Your Name is one of my favorite movies of the year. I don't know if that's a good review, but it's a review, it's a passionate review, because I was very... I almost want to put that movie on my top 10 list, but I don't know if it counts because it's a 2016 movie. But it did get released here late 2016 and then early 2017. And I saw it in 2017, like early. But I'm not sure. So I don't know if I can count it on my top 10 list or not. If I could, I would put it on there. I'd put Your Name on my top 10 list. So I'm going to have to struggle with that. I'm probably just going to put it in the honorable mentions and say that I didn't know where to put it on my top 10 list because I didn't know if it counted. Because people seem to change that every year with foreign movies. But I'll just say, I'll put it in my honorable mentions and say, if I knew where to put it, it would have ranked somewhere much higher. But yeah, this is a great weekend for Star Wars. Last weekend I put up comedically the title. It was to be ironic, Star Wars soars because it had a big drop. It didn't rise, it fell. But because of the holiday and the release date, this was a real boost. But still, it does need to be said, this is below Force Awakens. Force Awakens has made $200 million more than that, over that at this point. So this is not going to reach the final total of The Force Awakens, which was $936 million domestic. It just can't. It just can't, unfortunately. If you're a fan of this movie or not, it just can't do it. It's still going to be the highest grossing film of the year. It should still make... $700 million or at least $650 million. So it's still going to make a profit. Disney's still killing it. The merchandise, although I still think they're going to have just like so much extra merchandise like they did for Force Awakens. Way too much merchandise everywhere I go for this damn movie. But it's at $523 million foreign. As far as I know, it's opened in pretty much every market, and I believe China, it opened in China this weekend. Which they were hoping for at least $120 million in China, because Star Wars hasn't performed that well in China so far. Just surprisingly, I think they thought it would do a lot better there than it has. But $220 million opening weekend, which was below Force Awakens, but only by $27 million. But now it's over $200 million difference, which is crazy. It still made $1 billion, so that's a success. There's no doubt this movie has made profit at this point, and then some. It's made a lot of profit, I'm sure. So everything right now is just profit. Everything they make now just is profit for Disney at this point when you're making this kind of money. So it's still a huge success. I'm not really sure if it can reach that $2 billion that Force Awakens posted. I know it's at $1 billion in its third weekend, but I still think that it's got a long way to go. It still has to make another $1 billion to reach The Force Awakens. So my assumption is something a little bit more like 1.5, 1.6 million, and that's where it's at. Is Amy Pascal responsible for Ocean's 8? I do believe she is a producer on that movie and had the idea. I could be wrong, but I do think she was involved with that. So Star Wars, great weekend. That's a great weekend. Honestly, as impressive as the opening weekend, This is, I mean, $52 million for a Star Wars movie is, but comparison to last weekend where it looked like this movie was going to keep dropping, they really needed this, and this really kind of levels out the domestic total. Let's look at all the movies of the year and see where the box office is at now. Let's go look at everything worldwide. So what we have is the biggest films of the year are Disney. 3 is Disney. I'd say 5. 5 is Sony, but Disney helped work on that in MCU. Then you have Guardians and Thor and Pirates. So Disney has 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 movies in the top 10 biggest movies of the year worldwide. Now, last year they had the top, 5 outside of Secret Life of Pets, and domestically, it was, worldwide they had, The Jungle Book, Finding Dory, Zootopia, Civil War. They all made, $1 billion or 900 million or something, and they were all the biggest films of the year. So it's not as bad this year. Universal has a movie in here, and Despicable Me's Universal. Wolf Warrior 2 is in here, a Chinese film that made 870 million worldwide. It made that I think it made that all in China or something. It's insane. It's one of the most successful movies ever. Guardians of the Galaxy 2 and Thor Ragnarok were both big hits. Thor overperformed in my opinion. That did way better. And WB, to their credit, has Wonder Woman, which made a lot of profit, probably more profit than some of these other films. Which is a very profitable film. So that really makes up for Justice League. And then Fox has Logan, which now belongs to Disney, so that means Disney has Logan. And WB also has Kong and Dunkirk. So WB had a pretty good year, too. War for the Planet of the Apes from Fox was a major disappointment financially. The Boss Baby actually did pretty good. And I believe Kingsman is Fox, and Kingsman did all right. So overall, Fox, WB had a good year because of it. It's really put in Wonder Woman. But yeah, Universal and Disney seem to be once again dominating the box office, as they have been for the last few years. But this is now the biggest domestic film. It needs to make $1.3 billion to pass Beauty and the Beast, which it should be able to do. But I don't see it doing too much more than that. Whoops, sorry. So let me see if there's anything here I forgot. Not really. Nothing really worth talking about here. So let's sum this up. Specialty box office all benefited great from this weekend. All the movies had increased weekends from the previous weekend for the most part, including downsizing. Darkest Hour is turning into a surprise limited release hit from Focus Features. Shape of Water from Fox Searchlight is holding on. Lady Bird is now A24's biggest movie. And Jumanji is one of the biggest hits of the year and is a Sony movie. So for Sony, the studio that we all love to hate, and they had the year of Dark Tower, and the only thing that really did well for them was Spider-Man and Baby Driver. Who knew that at the end of the year they would have one of their biggest hits, and this was a total win for them. So maybe there's hope for Sony after all. This is really what they needed, because as far as I'm concerned, they kind of have a franchise now. I think you could make a sequel to this movie with the same actors. And Karen Gillan from Doctor Who, very, very sexy and terrific in the film Oculus. I'm glad that she's in this because it's kind of getting her out of that Guardians of the Galaxy makeup thing. Hopefully that she'll be in this. She'll be able to get some more work because I am a fan of her. I think she's very good. It's kind of how I've been a fan of Mary Elizabeth Winstead forever, and she just never really got a big role in the Cloverfield. You're like, yes, finally. Finally! Do you realize that they are doing a new Mary Poppins film? Yeah, isn't it with Emily Blunt? Isn't she playing Mary Poppins? I want to see Jumanji. I don't know how to spell it. No, you spelled it right, dude. It's spelled pretty much like what you would think. Let me see if I missed any questions, man. Sorry. I discovered me looking for people hating James Corden. I was actually on a radio interview because of that, on the show, the Jody and Scott Show. I think those guys work for iHeartRadio, but they have a radio podcast show, and they asked me to come on because of my James Corden video. I think they live in Florida, but I actually did a 7-minute interview with those guys, where they asked about my video, and we just complained about James Corden, and that was very gratifying. I love the reception of that video because I hate James Corden. And everyone, it was funny. These guys on a radio show found me, and they were like, "Hey man, we want you to come on the show and talk about this, how much this guy sucks." And it was really fun. I have the audio to that somewhere, but it's called the Jody and Scott Show. Try to find it on YouTube or online. And I'm on one of the recent episodes, and I come in at some point. I come in after the guy who invented KennyRogersLookalikes.com, which was an amazing guy to follow up. And then they just, I talk about James Corden and how I feel about him. But yeah, I love that video. See, that's the kind of video I wish people would watch. You know, like the Why Rose Didn't Work video. I didn't really think anyone would ever watch that video, and I think it's kind of lazy and slapped together and not one of my... You know, I ramble a lot in it, I mumble, I repeat myself, and then that gets 41,000 hits, and then I put a lot of work into that James Corden video, and I think it's really funny and well-paced, and, you know, it's kind of like a cult hit video for me, you know, where it has a smaller... The people who watch it really like it, but it's not the video that brings in a lot of ad revenue or anything like that. Which, thank God for this month. I made some decent ad revenue this month. Holy crap, people. You know, I thought I'd have to get most of any kind of extra cash from the Super Chat, which you guys have been very gracious with the last few months. But yeah, this was actually a really good month for ad revenue. I didn't get screwed over by YouTube. They actually let me keep my videos monetized this month, which was very nice. Have you seen the supposed leaked poster for the Han Solo spin-off movie? No, I have not. Oh, man, you're at a New Year's Eve party? Awesome, dude. Hey, originally I was planning on doing the show tonight at like 11 and going into midnight and New Year's Eve, and then we could celebrate New Year together. But I made plans with my girlfriend to watch the new season of Black Mirror, and we're going to, like, drink some champagne and watch that and spend... And, you know, I'm a boyfriend, too. I gotta be with my woman, people. You know, boyfriend's half of a job, half fun. And yeah, I gotta spend New Year's Eve with my woman. I would love to do a, I would have loved to have done this live stream till midnight, though. That would have been a lot of fun. Sup, what's some of your most anticipated films of next year? That's a good question. Because I don't actually know too much about what's coming out next year outside of the typical blockbuster stuff like Infinity War, which I'm excited about like anyone else would be, like in a very basic way. I feel like there's some movies coming out next year that I'm forgetting about that I'm really excited about. I'm going to have to get back to you on that because I can't think off the top of my head what they are. But I know there's movies I'm excited about waiting to see come out in 2018, and I just can't remember. And they're like really cool stuff, like you know, like whoa, like David Fincher kind of, you know, stuff where it's like, wow, that guy's making that, and I just can't, off the top of my head, remember. Hopefully we're getting a new season of Twin Peaks. What's your favorite Pokemon game? Either Gold or Red, but probably Gold. In my opinion. New Year's was a few hours ago. Well, not here. Well, where I live, New Year's, it's only 8:40 right now, so we're not, in a different place. Wouldn't want any other gig, you man? Hey, we are in a post for a short film I'm doing with my friends. I've been the producer and the director and the DP. Have been arguing about the edit. But it's been dope. Wouldn't want any other gig, you man? Oh, no, of course. That's the way you do it. You know, it's funny. My friend said this once, and he was so right about it, because my parents were in business. You know, they own their own private businesses and stuff. And I'd always, you know, argue with my parents, like, God, you just spend like 8-12 hours at this place at these boring, you know, because, you know, you're just working all the time. It's 24 hours. And I would tell them, like, how do you do it? And I don't know. My friend told me once, he goes, I don't think you get it. Like, they felt like they built something. And when they're there, they have this sense of pride and joy. And he says, you know, like, when we're on a set, he said, you know, it's frustrating. It's awful being there arguing with people, working 12 hours to 18 hours a day. You get tired, you get angry, you get hungry. You just get frustrated, your mind goes blank. But he says there's nowhere else I'd rather be. And that's exactly what it's like. I've been on the set of a movie and just been miserable. It's like being in the trenches in war. I've been laying on the ground before directing a movie where I've had to be in the ground to do a scene, and I had to direct on the ground in freezing. I mean, I just filmed something like a couple weeks ago, and it was like 20 below outside, and we were filming outside. It was awful. And it was, but while you're doing it, even though it's miserable, you're never happier than if you were doing anything else. And that's when you know you really love something. And I think people forget that feeling. If you're at a job and you do it and you hate it, and you still hate it when you go home and you just can't wait for it to be over, you probably shouldn't be doing that. Because it's not that you're not a hard worker. It's not even like laziness. Like, I'm not a lazy guy, but I wouldn't be good working at a construction site. It's not because I'm lazy. I just wouldn't be good at that. You put me on a set, you give me working at it, I'll work really hard, you know, and I'll spend all of my time on it. And that's what it's like. You have to be passionate sometimes to be a hard worker. Because it has to play to your strengths and the things that you know about that you can learn from, and your instincts play well, you know. Everyone's good in different fields, you know. And if it's hard work but you're enjoying it, you're enjoying the hard work and feeling fulfilled, even though it's miserable to do, then you're probably in the right field. If you hate what you do but you can't do anything else and you love it, you're probably on the right track. Tenacity is just as important as talent. It's just as important to not really let go and be told you can't do it. Because if you love doing it, don't let people to tell you not do it. It's not about being practical. It's about being happy. Okay, because what's more practical than being happy while you're alive until you're dead and then there's nothing? All right, there's nothing after you die, as far as I know and anyone else knows, really. So you might as well try and be happy while you're alive instead of being miserable all the time. You know, which a lot of people settle for. They settle for being miserable because it pays the bills. But you can be miserable doing something you love doing, too. But you feel better about it. It's more of a sense of accomplishment. It's a difference between having children and like, you know, taking care of being a babysitter. But when you have your own kid, you know, it's like, this is my kid. You know, don't talk about my kid. I know my kid. I worked on this kid, you know. I get this. I love this kid. Even though kids are freaking terrible and they're annoying and they take up all your time, you still wouldn't want anyone else to be your kid. You still wouldn't want another kid. You want your kid. Your kid matters to you. And that's what a movie's like. It's like your kid. It sucks, but you still love that you made it and you had it and it's yours. And now it's going to become its own person and affect other people differently. But it still comes from your mind, from your DNA. It comes from you. And it's not even like half you, like when you have a baby and it's half you and your woman. It's like, it's all you. You know, it's all of you. Yeah, completely. Dude, shooting can be hell, but it's like we are living the dream. That's what it's like, man. I'm never happier than when we're in production. I've never been... I think the best version of me is on a set. Like when I'm my funniest, my wittiest, my most creative, my most engrossing, my kindness, my empathy, my humanity, all comes out. My ego goes away. I think I like the person I am when I'm on a set. I like the person that I like the way that I treat other people. And it's something that's hard to keep up outside of that. Wow, tenacity is just as important as talent. It's true. It is. If people, you know, a lot of people give up and they think it's just because they're not good enough. But think about how many untalented hacks get to make movies. Brett Ratner got to make movies. He's not that talented. Okay, there's a lot of people out there that are very mediocre to average. And you're no worse or better than them. And you have just as much of a chance, but you have to stick with it. And it is luck. But, you know, with time, like they say, if you put your 10,000 hours in, if you just kind of settle for like, well, I'm not good enough, well, no one's good enough. I mean, your talent's subjective. Talent's overrated. It really is, because if it was all just about talent, then there wouldn't be as many people working, and it wouldn't happen as much as it does. And people like Katy Perry wouldn't be a famous pop star. Okay, it's not just talent. It's work ethic, and it's how much time you put in and the people you meet. And that's honestly 60-70% of it. It's probably 30% talent if you want to be in show business. Or if you want to make art. Tell your girlfriend that we are more important, Pat. Alright, well, I'll tell her that you spelt more with 2 O's like that. Like it's Roger Moore. You're Roger Moore important? Definitely love making them. My film school was lame. Are you an atheist? I don't try to proclaim I am because you know, I'm not one of those atheists that like hates religion or tries to think, or, you know, anti-theist like an AIU or a TJ Kirk who just wants to limit. I'm probably more agnostic than I am atheist, because I do think that there's a possibility of a higher power and that we don't understand it, or that human beings are all connected through some kind of energy that we can't even quite understand, and maybe there is something to energy and vibrations, and maybe we do exist on in some kind of form of energy. I don't really believe that, but it's a nice thought. I'd probably say I'm an atheist if I'm being honest, but I'm not like, I don't live my life as an atheist, and I don't really ever think about it, and it doesn't really concern me, and I don't really like saying I'm an atheist because I don't get the point. But I did grow up very religious and Christian, and I still think Christianity and just Judaic stuff has influenced me. And I have really no issue with it. Some of the most wonderful people in my life that taught me things and helped me become a better person was from my religious background. It doesn't have to be a bad experience. Religion, like a lot of other things, or going to church, you get a lot out of it, what you put into it, like education. And if you put a lot into it, you can get a lot out of it. I think it could be therapeutic if you handle it right. That doesn't mean it can't be bad either and crappy and people be judging you and telling you what to do and not. But if you could find nice people that actually want to help you grow as a person, you know, church can be one of the best places you go for that, I think. I think church can be a very great... It gives you a sense of community, and they take care of people there. Katy Perry is a pop star because she has boobs and so... Exactly, that's all it is. I'd say I'm agnostic. Yeah, I'd say I'm more agnostic than anything, but I'm not, you know, I'm kind of... You know, I'm libertarian, so I'm very much like individualist. I think that everyone kind of has their own... I don't believe in objective morality, and I don't believe that there's any moral standard that I have to live by or that anyone else has to live by. I think you have to kind of make up your own moral standards and live by them. But I don't like to tell anyone to live by my moral standards, just as like I wouldn't anyone to tell me to live by theirs. And that's kind of my philosophy in overall life, is that as long as you don't tell me that your morality is correct in any conversation, then I'm fine with you. But if you at all think that your ethics or what you think is somehow superior to my own, or you have a better grasp of it, then I think you're just kind of a moron. And that's why I'm not a fan of people like Sam Harris, totally, who talks about objective morality, which I think he doesn't even give a good argument or go into detail at all. And he just talks very... It's funny the lack of intellectual honesty and effort he puts into that whole conversation. Because he really doesn't have anything to stand on outside of a lot of his theoretical ideas of morality, and that gets a little aggravating. And that gets aggravating with atheists a lot of the time, because a lot of atheists do think there's an objective morality. I see a lot of time. I believe Matt Dillahunty thinks that way, and I think that is a laughable... that's more about your own ego than there actually being a physical morality that's totally established through revolutionary circumstances. You know, like, don't hit people because we get fearful of hitting and we learn not to be attacking. But it's still like... It's laughable that they think there's some kind of standard of morality you have to live by, because it's ultimately a contradiction. If you're saying that there's no God and the universe is meaningless and life doesn't matter, which is what science basically says in a lot of ways about being a human, then you can't tell me that there's any right and wrong while I'm living this life, because there isn't if it doesn't mean anything. If it has no meaning, then it doesn't matter what someone does, unless you make those rules up for yourself. So ultimately, morality, no matter what you want to say, is a subjective thing. And I'm not saying that as a nihilist. I don't believe it's nihilistic to think morality has subjectivity to it, because I think the human brain and just how you perceive things is almost entirely... not that the things are real. You turn the light off and on, that's real, but your perception of those things, in particular, what is good or bad, how do you even quantify what is good or bad? I don't know. I've never seen anyone make a good argument for it either. And I've listened to a lot of stuff and read a lot of books about it, and I really don't... Pat, how is Trump doing? Better than some people think he is, worse than a lot of people think he is. I'll put it that way. I'm definitely spiritual. I'm kind of into the idea that there's this energy that binds us all together and destroys us type of deal. I can get that. There isn't an objective reality or an atheist, but atheists will argue for an objective morality. Sam Harris will do this all the time. They'll argue for that there's an objective morality. I don't get where it's coming from. I see why you like Armored Skeptic. Yeah, I love Armored Skeptic. Yeah, he's one of my favorite people. I actually hate Armored Skeptic, but I don't hate him. I actually like parts of him. Is morality dictated by the law of the land? Then it's not really objective, is it? I'm not really sure, because, once again, your feelings on it don't have to be dictated by the law of the land. You know, you may get arrested for killing someone, but the person who killed the person doesn't have to feel sad that they killed the person. Now, that makes you like a psycho, sure, but you don't... morals that are set by someone else doesn't mean that you have to believe in them just because society is going to punish you for those moral choices. You know, it's against the law to smoke pot. How many people in this country smoke pot illegally despite that? Is that a bad thing because you're breaking the law? I don't think so. I think it's a stupid law. Should you not kill people? Yes, you shouldn't kill people. But if that guy doesn't care, just like you don't care when you eat a cow, or you don't care when, you know, it really, because when you get into moral arguments, the issue with it is that you start to unravel it more and more, and then you realize that it's a bunch of nonsense that people even think that they even have a base concept of what good or evil is, because it all goes back to almost like brainwashing. I mean, it's not those are just societal things. I mean, that's a sociological thing, and I agree with that. I think that affects us, but I don't think a lot of it's a real thing. I don't think it's a real physical thing. I think it's a behavioral thing that we set these standards for. I don't even know why we're talking about this. Jesus Christ. Have you seen the Tree of Life? Yes, of course. Pat confirmed a Jedi. My favorite Malik is Days of Heaven still, and then Badlands. I like New World, but not that much. Let's see. Morals were held even by Hitler. His just sucked. His just, well, I don't really, I don't think anyone's, I don't think anyone else's morals dictate it. Like, I don't have to care about what you care about, and you don't have to care what I care about and what I think it's important. There's a lot of stuff that I don't think is actually very important, and people want to act like you lack some basic humanity of that, but it's really just being a pragmatist about a lot of things. It's like, do you care about the kids in Africa who suffer? Well, I do, but I also don't, because I live most of my life day to day not thinking about it. I watch television, I drink my coffee, I eat my food, I take a dump, and I'm not thinking about it. But then when somebody asks me, I go, yeah, that does suck, I do feel bad. But it's not something that drives me crazy all day that I sit around and think about. And that's with most things in the world that are bad. I don't sit around and bother with thinking about them. And if I really care that much, wouldn't I care a little bit more? But then some people want you to care more, and it's like, well, I don't have to care about what you want me to care about, and I don't have to, that's my opinion. I don't think anything physical has to matter to me, emotionally. I don't think reality and my perception of it have to match totally, but maybe. Have you ever listened to Christopher Hitchens? Of course. Hitchens is like my guy. I mean, I love Hitchens. Hitchens is out of the Four Horsemen. I mean, God. Even though most of his work you can get from literature. I mean, you can see the people that he's riffing, or who he got his material from, or how he learned how to argument. Don't you believe in the social contract? I mean, once again, I think a lot of this stuff's debatable. I think this is like the symposium almost, like we're discussing these things philosophically, and I don't know. I'm not a scientist. I'm not going to claim to be, so I don't know a lot of the science behind some of this. This is just my view of these things and what I've heard from, like, psychologists or a neuroscientist, but I don't know, I don't know the facts of everything, so, so I don't talk about that stuff too much, but that's my opinion on it. Morality is all about the individual, but it is important to have general moral beliefs for society. I agree. I do agree with that. I think you do need to have those things to I totally agree with all that. I have no problem with people obeying rules to where we can all treat each other better. I totally agree with that for sure, and I think that's a good thing, and that's how we make progress. But I think a lot of those biological impulses that we think we've evolved past have just transferred into other things. Think about all the vitriol and hate you see on the internet now. That's really just transferring some of that aggression and anger, the need to do certain things, onto a different platform. Or having a home being like your cave. Need for attention. There's just different, you're doing different things to your biological drive to have sex and get women. There's a great line in the Richard Linklater film Tape, and Ethan Hawke says to the other character, he goes, you do what everyone else does. You do whatever it takes to get laid, and then when the next thing comes out to get you laid, you do that. And I really do think human beings are pretty much predominantly driven by how much sexual desire they can get from others. So whatever you think can benefit you to get more women, or vice versa, to get a man or to have a child or what have you, I think that drives human beings a little bit more than they think. Even the things that you do to be successful, to make yourself happy, is also to make yourself, in general, a situation in your life where you have more ability to choose a partner and have the kind of sexual experience in life that you want to have. But of course I like Hitchens. Updates on any of your upcoming film projects. I'm still in post-production on my current movie, Tough Guys, and we're doing ADR and sound stuff. And that takes a long time. So that's going to be a while on that. Different classes have different morality. The higher class, the longer the outlook. Shorter class, the more short-term. The reason I bring up The Tree of Life is because it deals with spirituality in a very interesting way. I agree. I do think that's one of his more interesting films. Isn't Malik just a straight-up Christian? They always have some stupid excuse. You sound like you're a big fan of Freud. I like Freudian thought when I studied psychology in school a little bit. I mean, I don't have a psychology, but I took classes. I like Freudian thought. I don't believe in anything Freud said, really. I think he's wrong about everything. But the idea of how Freud views things and how he teaches you to think in that kind of mindset, I think a lot of people take for granted, young people. I had a lot of friends who were like, why do we even learn Freud? You know, he was just a drug addict, sexist who thought women were below. And it's like, yeah, but the way he was at least trying to cut through the fad of things and get to some kind of truth that is based just solely off behavioral patterns, I think is a and there's the struggle of men and women, just the difference between men and women, and is that the ultimate fight in the universe of this whole world of this evolved species? Is that all it came down to, is man and woman being self-aware of their manness and their woman, their femininity and their masculine, and those two things clashing in a society that gives them equal opportunity, and the different cultures clashing. Sexual market value. That's right. Yeah, I'm not, you know, I mean, politically, my biggest inspiration is Thomas Sowell. He's someone that I read his work. He's someone that, I say taught me, economics. Henry Hazlitt, that economics book, which is only like 140 pages. You know, philosophy. I've read a lot of philosophy. But that's very, you know, God, even if you read a lot of philosophy, it's just stuff that you kind of come to on your own once you're an adult. That's what really shocked me about a lot of stuff like that. Dostoevsky, read a lot of him. In particular, The House of the Dead, which I think is his most underrated work. Chekhov. You know, and then you watch movies by someone like Bergman, who's making films about the silence of God. You watch Kubrick, who even seems to be making films as he is a god, looking at human beings from a godly eye point of view. You read The Fountainhead, you read Atlas Shrugged, even though those books are highly overrated in my opinion. Oh my God, I think they've aged horribly. It's kind of like reading Dickens. Dickens got paid per word, so his books are all over long, even though they have great stories. They're just always like twice as long as they should be. Any advice for someone going to film school next year? Well, okay, my best advice for you. House of the Dead was cool, but Ball butchered the story for the movie. Oh, yeah. That's hilarious, man. Yeah, I love Dostoevsky's House of the Dead video game series. That's hilarious, man. Good call. Here's my advice to anyone going to film school. Anything that you're going to learn in a film school, in a film class, and I'm telling you this is just how it is. You could learn if you went out and made movies yourself. If you went and bought the equipment, sound, cameras, all that with your friends. Everything that you're going to go learn from just guerrilla doing it, you're going to learn in a film class. You're going to learn angles and all that. You just learn it naturally. It's part of it. It's trial and error. I mean, think how many directors didn't go to film school. Tarantino, Paul Thomas Anderson, Christopher Nolan. None of them went to film school. What you should focus on as a director is what you can bring as imagination and storytelling. You should focus on reading books about history and philosophy, reading stories. You should read stories. You should learn how to tell a story. You should read Shakespeare. You should read plays. You should read screenplays. You should read books all the time. All the time. Language. Take things from words. Plagiarize. It doesn't matter. Steal poems. Steal dialogue. Steal shots from movies. Watch movies. The knowledge you're going to have in that regard is going to benefit you more almost than some of the technical aspects or some of the basic writing techniques or filmmaking techniques they're going to teach you in a film class. It's stuff you could get off a DVD commentary. I'm not even kidding you. It's a lot of stuff you could learn. But focus more on being a better and more interesting person than just being a great director, because a lot of people know how to do the technical stuff, and a lot of them end up as second unit directors because they're not good enough to really make a movie. And what you need to bring is, okay, sure, you know how to shoot a movie, you know how to put together, but what is your idea? What makes you so damn interesting? What's your worldview? What influences you? What inspires you? What's your muse? Because you're going to have a bunch of different muses in your life. You're not just going to have one muse. You're going to have several muses. So, my advice would be to don't get so concerned with, oh, I got to make good-looking shots, because that's only a means to an end to get a good shot. There's so much more than that happens when you're making a movie, even with improvisation on the set with actors, working with them. I'd say also work with actors. Learn to work in the theater department if there's that there, and work with actors and because that's so important. Actors smooth out everything. No, learn about lenses, learn about framing, learn film theory, study film. All that stuff's very important. I'm still studying. I've been studying for 16 years. I'm still learning. But also sound. Make sure you get a good sound guy when you start making your student stuff, because if your movie doesn't sound good and people can't hear it, it doesn't matter how good it looks. So yeah, sound, and focusing on just being an interesting person, being intelligent. The great directors are all look, think of Kubrick. What made him so great? He was well read. He knew a lot of stuff. The more knowledge you have on the world and things around you, like architecture, or things like that, will make you a better filmmaker, because you will know how to present those things visually into a movie, and you will know how to tell stories based off these real-life things or these other stories, because you are so familiar with them that you can go to them as a source, an unlimited source of information for you to apply into your own work. Because film schools try to keep you on these narrow rules a lot of the time, and they don't really let you, they're not the best place to find yourself and your own individual voice and the choices you want to make. And I would say that that comes from just life experience and the knowledge of the world around you and history and that. And you're not going to totally get that from a film class. You're just not. Even a great film class, you're only going to get somewhat of that. It really depends on you. Once again, it comes down to the individual. Art cannot totally be taught. Art can only be slightly perfected by teaching and repetition, but it cannot be great. Just by definition, it cannot be great by being taught. You kind of have to truly be great and interesting. You have to be great and interesting yourself. That's one of the most difficult things. If you wonder why so many movies aren't that great, it's because the people making them weren't that interesting, and that's kind of the sadness of a lot of it. But I'd say just being working on your sound though. Work on sound. Sound's so important. Sound effects, closing a door, somebody sitting on a couch, eating chips. You should work on these little short films working on sound, because we get so caught up in the visual on films that we forget about the audio part of it. And the audio part is just as important. And if you can master that, it'll make the video part a lot easier, because you'll find out that audio is kind of one of the hardest parts about making a movie, is getting the sound right. And if you can get the sound as much in camera as you want, just like you want the visuals, you'll be doing a lot less work in editing. Because if you shoot too much footage and you have too much stuff, you go in the editing room, you can have a mess of a movie that's really hard to cut together, because you're not Scorsese or Kubrick. You got to be careful of that stuff. So kind of know what you want before you go in, and storyboards and all that. But really know that you have your audio right, so you can do more with your camera and not be so nervous about, like, well, crap, are people going to be able to hear this conversation? Because if they can hear the conversation, it doesn't matter if you got a cool look of it. If it looks cool, you got to get it right. And framing and elegance, doing less is more. Don't worry about having a 15-minute tracking shot. Worry about having a shot that the framing is so good that you could keep that as a still shot for 5 minutes and nobody would care. That's when you're a good filmmaker, when one image is enough to tell a story. When you don't need several images in the edits. When you could tell an image with one story, and then your movie ends up being a series of stories told over those images. Then you're kind of on the right place. When you could start doing that, you start cutting, and it starts to become almost like a series of photos for you, and you can understand how each photo tells that next part. Then you're kind of getting it. You kind of get being at least in my experiences, that's when people kind of start to really get a groove going. They all came out of Sundance Institute, though, but yes, they all made amateur stuff before that. Everyone did. That's the thing. PTA made Boogie Nights before Boogie Nights was done. He made that when he was 17. Tarantino made that birthday movie. Nolan was making stuff. You get a camera and you go out and shoot stuff. Think about Richard Linklater. He went and made Slacker. Stalker's Tarkovsky. Slacker, he just went in Austin and shot a movie, or Clerks even. Clerks is a great example. Clerks has terrible direction and cinematography. It looks awful. YouTube videos look better than Clerks, but it's got a good script, great dialogue, and decent enough acting that the characters are likable, so it became a cult classic. It's not because Kevin Smith's a great filmmaker. It's because he knew that if you get the dialogue right and people can hear it and laugh at these jokes and connect with these guys, you have a movie. He focused on the right things. It's volume that's important, isn't it? You seem the form, your brain can construct new variations and remember old ones to translate. Sorry, I can't read it all. I very much agree. Is your muse a fickle biatch with a very short attention span? Respect you if you know that. Snyder has at least directed some good films, unlike J.J. I'd agree that Dawn of the Dead's better than any J.J. Abrams film, but I do like Mission Impossible 3, in my opinion. I think that's a pretty fun action movie. Snyder and J.J. are compared. I think they actually have like an exact similar style. I heard the industry doesn't like film school. I don't know why. A lot of LA directors, the guys who work on stuff now, come from the film school scene. You don't need to go to become a filmmaker. You know, you really don't. That's something that they lie to you a lot, because you kind of get in your head that you have to be a director, or that you have to have a degree to be something like that. But in the arts, it's not that way. It's not like being a doctor. Okay, it's if you can figure out how to shoot a movie and edit it and learn how to write a story, it's something literally anyone can do. And with digital technology getting more complex on phones and cameras, it's going to get to the point where everyone's going to start making movies. It's really not as hard as you think it is. The illusion's getting broken. It was just hard because it was expensive to get the equipment. But once the technology becomes more accessible, people are going to learn that making a movie is something that almost anyone can do. Anyone can be a director. It's making something good that's hard. It's not making something. It's easy to make something. It's hard to make something good, because that comes from you being someone that has something worth saying. It's not just going to magically happen. And it depends on the location, the actors, all that stuff. That's how I agree with you. That's how they got in Sundance. But people always forget that part. I just mention it because it's vital and hard to get in. It is hard to get in. But you know, like I said, tenacity is as important in talent. They didn't give up. Tarantino worked at a video store for years, and he saved up his money to make a movie, and he kept writing and writing and writing, and then he got stuff made. You know, that's, I mean, even if you're good about it, it's just working. It's just working. Treat it like a job, even when you're not getting paid for it. It's still a job. You still got to put your time in. Or you could make movies about 20-something in New York being witty. Oh, I know. That's I know. Didn't Fincher go to film school? I believe so, but even then, he was working at like 20 on Return of the Jedi. Like, he was a kid working on Star Wars. He was already doing, like, it's like James Cameron. He was working on Roger Corman and Carpenter films before he made anything. I mean, he was working on Escape from New York, and you could see a lot of Carpenter's influence on him when he went to make Terminator, actually. But a lot of those guys just put their hours in. James Cameron worked on a lot of movie sets. He learned how to do stuff technically. They didn't teach him in film school how to make Terminator 2. You think he learned how to do CGI, computer-generated stuff in school? You think David Fincher learned about CGI in the 80s? He barely learned anything. You think he learned all that stuff to make Fight Club? No, David Fincher's just a high IQ, smart guy. And he learned very easily the techno. He's almost like a scientist with it, with the equipment, an engineer, if you will. And he learned to apply that genius mind of his to be a technical master in a vein of a Kubrick. Actually, but yeah, it's. But yeah, Fincher just has years of experience. God, he did all those music videos for years, which taught him about editing and developing a style and lighting, which led to his movies looking like his music videos. Or Spike Jonze, Michel Gondry. Think about all the... Spike Jonze didn't go to film school. Spike Jonze watched movies on DVD because they lived in the time of DVD. You can watch a DVD with the sound off. You can listen to the commentary. You can get documentaries on films now. You can... It's not that... there's some illusion people have where they think films are these great mystery boxes, but they're really not. A set's not as complex as you think it is. I think people misunderstand how complex movies are. It's really not the rocket science people think it is. Maybe something like Gravity... or a Birdman when you're working at world-class levels and you're actually doing really technically difficult stuff. But most movies are not made at that level of technical difficulty. Most movies follow a certain rule that people... That's why a lot of actors can become directors like Robert Redford. They pick it up after working on movies for so long because you learn how it's made. You learn how stuff gets done. You learn how lenses work and all that, you know? I think people way overestimate the actual... level of intelligence or skill it takes to be working on a movie set. It's not... A lot of dumb people work on movies, or at least average intelligence. It's not a bunch of geniuses. You'll have people like that, but it's not everyone. I believe... weren't the Ewoks David Fincher's idea? I didn't think so. I thought that was that one guy's name. God, I can't remember his name until, man. High IQ like Base Mama. Yeah. Let me see. Nolan got an English degree. He was well read, which goes back to the begging. Exactly. Nolan didn't go to film school. He made short films while he learned something else. And he applied the knowledge he took from those other things into his movies, and it paid off. That's the thing. If George Clooney could do it, that's the thing. So many actors, they didn't. Yeah, you be around it, and you know how it's done. You just gotta put the time in. It's like when you get a new job and you don't know how to do it, and you get trained, and then after you do it for a while, you can get pretty damn good at that job to where it's like the muscle memory is crazy. That's how it is making a movie. Once you do it enough times by trial and error, it's like playing a video game. Every time you die, you start over, and you learn again. Yeah, Blood Money, make it in black and white, witty 20-somethings. I want modern... Here's my pitch for a Star Wars film. I want you guys to give me your idea of this. George Miller directing a 90-minute Star Wars film called Pod Racer. Pod Racer follows a slave on Tatooine or another planet who has like this one last race, and if he can get this, if he can win, he gets money and he gets his freedom. If he loses, like he loses some money, maybe he loses his wife and child. Make it high stakes. First 20 minutes is just setup. Then it's like a 70-minute long movie in the vein of Fury Road. George Miller, who is perfect for the Star Wars universe, directing a straight up, not a chase movie, a race movie, like Speed Racer stuff. And it would be, Sebulba comes back, we have the main character, and it's a pod racer film. It's a 90-minute non-stop action thrill ride with the pod racer, because the pod racer sequence still holds up. The sound design in that sequence is amazing. Oh my god. When the sound is do 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 wow, the sound goes down do 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 do, or Sebulba's behind Anakin and that. Imagine a whole movie of that. People crashing. There's people shooting at you. Oh, it'd be so intense. And then the guy has to go like refuel. It's like a long race that takes place over like 3 days or something. Oh, please give me that movie. Oh yes. You put some like charismatic, awesome actor like Joseph Gordon-Levitt in the lead. It's Joseph Gordon-Levitt racing pod racers in a George Miller movie. Please give me that movie. People are jumping off pod racers onto other pod racers. You've described how you can get good, but what remains is the question of how end up going in the other direction like Ridley Scott, or dare I say Spielberg. Hubris? Probably. That's probably what that is. I think you get burnt out too, you know, once you make so many things. I mean, how does Spielberg follow up doing Schindler's List? You know, I don't know. Creatively, it is just ups and downs. Age affects you, where you're at in your life, the passion you have, the hunger you have. You might be more hungry at a certain time in your life than later in your life. So like Death Race buttons, exactly like Death Race 2000. Almost exactly Death Race 2000 in space. I want pod racers back for a whole movie. And I want it to just be a pod... I don't want anything. No major plot. Not a bunch of character development. Fury Road proved you don't need that crap. Just 90 minutes straight up of racing and awesome action scenes. And this guy getting out of tense situations and being an awesome pod racer. I would watch that movie like 5 times in the theater. And it would win several Oscars. It'd be amazing. Oh no, George Miller should have been on Star Wars from the get-go. I don't know what they fired like some of the like laziest choices. Like they have all these great directors they could have hired, and they went with Abrams and then Rian Johnson. I mean, they have this whole plethora of great like directors they could have let them helm the new films. Like let's get George Miller. Let's give it to Brad Bird. Let's get to these guys who have like 20 years of experience in the industry and have been doing great stuff forever. You know, oh. Speaking of Spielberging, dear God, he is so bored. You can see by the post trailer that he's just ripping himself off. Wasn't Levin in Last Jedi as the beach parking? Yes, he was. That was Joseph Gordon-Levitt. That was his one cameo in Rian Johnson's movie. Amistad. God, Amistad's so bad. Except for the amazing sequence when they get taken. That's pretty great, but God, everything else. I think Paul Anderson Minor could do a good Star Wars movie. Simple, uncomplicated. Maybe. Maybe you're not wrong about that. Oh, great. I broke my rule again, and the show went longer than I was expecting. Man, the post looks like a more boring version of Spotlight, which was already boring, and none of those films were ever All the President's Men, so no. I think that's all it is. I think Spielberg's just directed too much, and he's just got too many things he can fall back on. I think it's too easy for him. I think he can just sleepwalk and make a movie now, and that's kind of what he does with Bridge of Spies and stuff. The last movie he made where I thought he put a lot of effort into it was Munich. Even if you don't like Munich, because Munich is a love-or-hate-it movie, the ambition behind the filmmaking and the craftsmanship is... He was trying to do parts of that Hitchcockian like he did in Schindler's List, so I at least give him credit for that. That was the last film of his I thought where he was really trying to do something artistic. But yeah, I found all of his recent films to just be minor accomplishments, nothing worth noting. They're all watchable. I don't think Spielberg really makes bad movies, but he hasn't really made a great movie. The BFG is pretty bad, and so is War Horse. Alternative title: This is Pod Racing. Man, I want Sebulba back, man. Can we get Sebulba, the best character in Phantom Menace? Alright guys, this has went on way longer than I wanted it to, and I feel like a jerk because I told my girlfriend this would only be an hour. So I'm going to end this now so I don't go too longer. I wasn't a big fan of Lincoln either. I liked the conversation scenes, but I wasn't so big on the epic aspects of it. But, alright, I'm going to wrap this up. Thank you for tuning into Box Office Addict. You never liked any Spielberg movie. You don't like the Sugarland Express or Duel? Have you seen those ones? Like his early stuff? I agree. I actually think David Lynch has gotten better. That's the craziest thing. David Lynch is a better director now than maybe he was when he was young. It's like he's kept evolving his style. It is true. I agree. If you're not a fan of Spielberg, I don't know if you've seen all of his movies, but I would recommend going back and watching the Sugarland Express and Duel. And I still think Jaws, if you want, before he goes full Spielberg, you know, like with Close Encounters. God, I'm trying to think if there's any gems in his filmography. Empire of the Sun. I think Duel was his first. That was a TV movie, and then I think he got to make Sugarland Express after that, and that was a theatrical film. But you should give Sugarland Express a chance. It's really good. With Goldie Hawn, and that redheaded guy that's a jerk from Ghostbusters and Real Genius. Pat neglecting his Gia. I know. Age can be great for... Well, honestly speaking, age should make you a better director. Honestly. Like, it honestly, like, the older you get, you should be better, but it's so weird so many people don't get better. They get worse. Thanks for the stream. Wish I could watch them live. Yeah, man, I'm sorry you can't. That sucks. But, yeah, it is weird. You think the older you get, you'd be a better filmmaker. You'd be more mature and understand more and have more knowledge. But I think you know what you're eliminating though, Paul. Oh, sorry, I called you Blood Money. You know what you're eliminating? You're leaving out the physicality of making a movie. It's a very physically demanding thing to be a director, and if you don't have great genetics, and you get a little bit too old, even some of those old directors that look like out of shape, they still have. It's like William Shatner. He's physical. It's a very physically stressful thing to make a movie. And yeah, your muse, what inspires you. David Lynch never lost his muse. Also, David Lynch takes years off movies, just like Fincher does, just like Kubrick did. And I think taking those years off gives you time to get inspired again and work on pre-production. I think a lot of those directors like Spielberg, he doesn't take a lot of breaks. He makes a movie a lot. And Scorsese, it's crazy, him or Woody Allen, you know, they make a lot of movies. So not every film's Goodfellas, not every film's Annie Hall. And I think the older you get, you should be better, but, you know, it's a stressful job. It depends on the movie you're making. I mean, it blows my mind that Kurosawa was able to make Ron when he was 70. I don't know how he filmed that movie at 70. I don't think I could film that movie now when I'm in my 20s. I think it would stress me out too much. You know, confidence in being able to just do it's just a physical demanding job. You're carrying around a lot of heavy equipment. It's probably easier now because you just get to sit behind a monitor. But you're always involved in the action and what's going on, and you're always out there. And, you know, guys like James Cameron are kind of made for it. And it's really tough. It's tough if you're making those kinds of, you know, like think about Fincher, you know. What he does is probably very muscular. It's very machine-like. It's very, it's almost like engineering. I mean, it really is. And it's, you know, you got to have a mind for it, but you also got to be able to handle the stress of it. It's very stressful to make a movie. It's months of work. It's maybe even years of work. And it just tires you out like anything like that. You get very tired. And I think that's one of the biggest issues. You can't always have a great time when you're making a movie. Spielberg used to be good, banging out $200 million films a year consecutively for what, 10 summers? Oh no, he was on a run like no one else for years. Kurosawa cranked out so much great stuff. Yeah, but it's just crazy because Ron's such an epic. Like, it's so like the fact that he made, like, in so many ways his most epic film visually, in Kagemusha late in his life is just so crazy. Oh no, Kurosawa is he's better than the hype you hear about him. You hear his name and and then you watch and his movies are way more entertaining and funny and engrossing than so many other foreign films and foreign directors you find out about. You find out that Kurosawa was like watching these great epics, these great Western John Ford inspired pieces. It's so they're crowd pleasers as much as they are art. Bergman, too, on a smaller scale. Yes, Spielberg at his best was the director of blockbusters. I think the only reason Kurosawa could make Ron is because he was the only thing that was keeping him going. Dude was so freaking depressed. I think that helps, too. Needing a purpose. I think you're young, you will make a movie that is of at the time and that impacts audiences on a more memorable and positive way. You're probably right. The era you live in affects you and you lose connection. There's generation gaps. You kind of. I mean, think about Martin Scorsese. How has he been able to stay relevant? It's pretty impressive, isn't it, that he's still able to make modern movies? That Wolf of Wall Street was such a hit. That he still kind of gets what young people are into. That's tough to do. You lose that. As epic as Throne of Blood, I think much more epic than Throne of Blood. Actually, I don't think Throne of Blood's that much of an epic. I think Throne of Blood's a very small, intimate movie. That's only epic in itself. I mean, I probably like Throne of Blood a little bit more because of that ghost sequence and the arrow scene, but Throne of Blood doesn't have near the scale of Ron. Ron's probably got more extras than any of his other films that I can think of off the top of my head. Yeah, just all the places they built, destroying that whole like village. That whole, like, area and the one part, the fire and all that. I mean, Ron looked like it was expensive. I mean, that was like a $12 million film. Throne of Blood, I doubt, actually cost them... Which is what's impressive about Throne of Blood is how low budget it is and how good it looks. Like, it's pretty crazy how he pulled that movie off. That movie's amazing, but, yeah, I don't think... I mean, you could say Seven Samurai, obviously, because of its length and character. Yeah, he's just talking about epic. I think he was meaning epic as in scope. I don't think he meant epic as in, like, I don't think he necessarily means, like, epic as in, like, epic, bro. Ready Player One is at its best looks like something that would have been inspired in Lane. I don't dislike the look of Ready Player One. I like that the stuff in the live-action world looks like Minority Report. And I don't have an issue with the video game Uncanny Valley look because it isn't a video game, so... It's one of those things that's a bad book but could be a good movie. There are books like that. I mean, that's how, like, Jaws was or Die Hard. It's like a bad book, but it could be a good movie. Really could. Ozu is the best director from Japan. I think so, maybe. I don't know. I might like Kurosawa more. I meant in quality. Maybe. I mean, maybe. I don't know, because, you know, Ron almost has this... You know what I really like about Ron, more than some of his other films? It's the female character, right? And I know Throne of Blood has that because it's Macbeth, so it has Lady Macbeth. But it's almost like Ron has its own Lady Macbeth, too. And she's so much more... She's one of the greatest villains in a movie ever, is the girl in Ron, who sets everything in motion. And Ron is just so tragic. I mean, like Throne of Blood is a great adaptation of Shakespeare, but it doesn't... I never quite understand... I don't think it quite had that epicness of Shakespearean tragedy. While Ron does, it's one of the most tragic, sad films ever made. It's just completely depressing by the end, and I think that kind of gives it something... I think that kind of gives it something more. I don't disagree. I think Small Things can be epic too, of course. Of course, the whole sequence... Of course, the whole sequence in the scene with the ghost chick's like one of the scariest things I've ever seen. I love that sequence. It actually kind of reminds me of House. It actually kind of reminds me. It's very Japanese. I love how Japanese do horror. I I don't know. I mean, I think Ron's broad strokes in Throne of Blood is more intimate, probably, and that gives it a richness of its lead character. But Ron is almost kind of the red that's being painted in front of you is almost like Kurosawa's statement of the movie itself and how he approaches the filmmaking, and I think that has more of a visceral thing about it. Maybe just him really making this almost like late career statement on violence and the nature of violence and what he's even contributed to that as an artist and a storyteller, and to just even have that opening of that movie. The first 20 minutes of that movie is just a bunch of people talking on the grass, and it's so engrossing and sets you for this calmness before you just get into such a psychologically draining experience. Well, Throne of Blood, unfortunately, I think if you know the story of Macbeth, and you're too familiar with it, even though I know, Ron's Shakespeare too, I don't know, I feel like you probably could get more from a theatrical version of it's my favorite Macbeth adaptation, but I don't know, I feel like maybe I was too familiar with that story when I saw that movie. And Ron, when I watched that, I didn't know exactly where it was going. And I do like Leia. It's impressive how Ozu made a lifelong career doing virtually the same amazing thing with different tones. Oh, dude, you also saw... Of course I own House on Criterion. House. Or as we like to say, Houseu. One of the Evil Dead before Evil Dead, man. Great soundtrack, great visuals. One of the greatest posters, covers in movie history. No, I go look at that Blu-ray of mine all the time, and I'm like, oh, that's one of those films like when friends come over, I'm like, dude, we gotta watch this movie. This movie's gonna blow you away. House. Kung Fu. I love that girl, Kung Fu. She's amazing. Biggest crush ever. She fights all the evil monster ghosts in the house. Does anyone do better ghost stories than the Japanese? I swear to God. They just get ghosts. That's just something they have figured out that we're so far behind on. House. I can't get it out of my head. Yes, you're so right. They make her villainous and sympathetic. That blows me away. That's the thing. Her character is so fascinating to me. Almost what even Kurosawa said with that about women. I mean, it really was like the power that women can have that isn't physical but mental, and the things that they can do. I think is very... It's like, because really she's the villain of the story in a lot of ways, but also the old man's the villain because he caused all of this. So it's a cycle, but the fact that what he did led to her being the way she is, and what she can do with that, and the cruelty and the hatred and anger that she has, I think is so... is one of the best things he ever accomplished. And the final shot of that movie, has there ever been a final shot that's more depressing? I mean, maybe the Bicycle Thieves and a couple other movies, but God, one of the most haunting, horrifying final shots that I've ever seen, where it just... the movie gives you no optimism. It doesn't even try. It really doesn't. I agree. I don't think Tokyo Story is his best film, too. I get that it's his definitive film, and it's the one that's like the most represents him at his best, but I know it's not my favorite. A man turns into a pile of bananas. True horror. That's how I feel. Also, Houseu was co-written by the director's 11-year-old daughter. Well, thank God, because it has the imagination of a child, and that's a great part of it. Thanks for the filmmaking advice, Pat. Gotta go. Happy New Year. You have a Happy New Year. All right, you guys, this is officially the end now. Happy New Year, because I went way longer. I wanted this to be an hour-long episode, and once again, it ended up being one of the longer ones, so... But it is the last episode of the year. We've been doing the 6 months. It's the New Year special. If there was a time to indulge, it was now. So thank you for tuning into Box Office Addict, where I only talked about the box office for 45 minutes, and then the rest of this whole thing was me talking about random stuff. The most random stuff. But it is about the discussion and the people. If you are a subscriber, then thank you for watching. If you're new to the show, tune in next Sunday. I do this every Sunday. Random times, usually late afternoon, evening. But it's been a great year, and let's make 2018 even better, guys. And let's grow this channel and this show. And it's been an awesome year. It's had a lot of ups and downs. It's definitely been one of the craziest years ever, just overall, everything that happened. But I can't help but look back at it with a smile, because it's the journey that got you there, not the end destination necessarily. But I feel very fulfilled about the journey that we all went on. And I've been going on, and, the journey's just getting started. There's still more story to tell. We're probably not even halfway through. So, let's tell the story together. Alright? All right, so Happy New Year's, guys, and you have a great time. And if you are a box office addict like myself, I am not here to help you with your addictions. I'm here to encourage them.